Winterfell feasted like a man pretending he was not hungry. The hall was full of heat and meat and noise, yet an old cold sat in the stones and would not be chased out by torches or ale. It lived in the mortar, in the breath of the dire wolves carved above the doors, in the long memories of the north. Even the king's laughter sounded like it had to fight its way free. Tyrion Lannister watched Robert Baratheon drink as if it were a battle he meant to win. The king's great hands swallowed the horn, his beard slicking with foam, his cheeks ruddy with the joy of it. There was a time, Tyrion thought, when the same hands had swung a warhammer and broken princes. Now they wrestled with a cup and lost, again and again, with a grin that dared the world to call it defeat. Across the table, Queen Cersei sat with a queen's posture and a jailer's eyes. Her smile was a courtesy paid in counterfeit coin. When Robert roared at some jape from Renly, she flinched as if the sound had struck her. Jaime did not. Jaime leaned on one elbow, golden as a story, watching the room like a man watching a sparring yard. His gaze touched Tyrion and lingered, amused, then drifted away. Jaime had always liked games he could not quite predict. Eddard Stark sat at the king's left, stiff as the iron in his name. Robert boomed at him often. Old war tales, old brotherhood. And Ned answered with a thin smile that carried more duty than delight. Lady Catelyn Stark moved like a quiet storm at the edge of the dais, tending to courtesies, tending to her children, tending to the dignity of a castle that had been made to host kings without ever being impressed by them. Tyrion drank slower than Robert. He listened, he watched, he listened again. He had learned long ago that the truth often arrived in the room as a servant, unnoticed until it spoke. Joffrey Baratheon. Joffrey, son of Robert Baratheon, heir to the Seven Kingdoms, the boy with the lion's smirk, sat below the dais, sullen as a cat denied its milk. His eyes flicked toward Ned Stark with a kind of loathing that felt rehearsed. Sansa Stark's gaze followed Joffrey the way a prayer follows a god, bright with hope that did not know the weight of what it asked. Arya Stark looked everywhere else. Tyrion's lips twitched. A court in a northern hall, wolves and lions and stags under one roof, all of them pretending the roof would hold if the beams began to burn. Robert slammed his horn down. "Gods," he bellowed. "I've missed a proper meal. Piss on your southern rabbits and dainty little fish. Ned, you've kept the best part of the realm to yourself." "It isn't mine to keep," Ned said, mild as falling snow. Robert leaned closer, the smell of ale and sweat and nostalgia on him. "Everything is mine," he said, and laughed as if it were a joke. Tyrion raised his cup in a small salute. "An expensive way to live, your grace." Robert's head turned. The king's eyes, blue, still startlingly alive beneath the heavy lids, found Tyrion and brightened, as if the world had offered him a new toy. "Ah, the dwarf speaks. Come, tell me, how expensive?" "As expensive as you wish," Tyrion said, "and rather more than you can afford." A hush did not fall, not fully, but something in the air shifted. People loved honesty from men who could be punished for it. Cersei's eyes sharpened. Jaime's smile widened, almost proud. Robert stared for a heartbeat, then threw back his head and laughed so hard his chair creaked. "I like you," he said, pointing at Tyrion with the careless authority of a man who had never needed to fear consequences. "You've got stones, little lion." "Only the one, I'm afraid," Tyrion said and sipped his wine. Ned's mouth tightened. Catelyn looked away as if she had not heard. Around them, the hall exhaled, laughter returning in cautious measure. But Tyrion felt it, beneath the noise. The king's laughter had teeth. There was anger in it, and boredom, and a deep, tired hunger for someone, anyone, to tell him the truth without kneeling first. And kings, Tyrion had learned, were most dangerous when they were hungry. The Godswood had a way of making men smaller. Tyrion felt it even with his usual cynicism armored tight. The air smelled of damp earth and ancient bark, and the silence had weight. The heart tree's carved face stared down like something that had watched too many promises rot. Robert had demanded the walk as if it were another cup. "Too many eyes," he'd grumbled. when Tyrion asked why. Too many tongues. I want air. Now the king trudged beside him, boots sinking into soft ground, breath steaming. His cloak hung from his shoulders like a banner that had forgotten its war. He looked at the heart tree and spat. "Your northern gods," he said, staring and judging. "They're quiet judges," Tyrion replied. "Quiet?" Robert echoed, and there was a bitterness in it. He stopped and turned, suddenly close, looming over Tyrion like a storm given flesh. "Tell me," he said, voice low, "is it true? Am I broke?" Tyrion blinked once. The question was almost tender in its ugliness. "Yes, your grace," he said. "If the realm were a man, it would be selling its boots to buy wine." Robert's mouth twitched. "And whose fault is that?" "Mine." "Largely," Tyrion said, "because there was no point in lying to a man who had dragged him beneath a heart tree for honesty. But you are not alone. A king spends. That is what kings do. The trouble begins when everyone around the king learns they can spend too." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Little finger." "One of several," Tyrion said. "A clever man can steal with a smile and leave you grateful for the privilege." Robert snorted. "I hater clever men." "And yet you keep them," Tyrion said, "because you hate boredom more." Robert's laugh came out as a short bark. Then his face hardened. "Jon Arryn wasn't clever," he said. The name fell like a stone into water. He was true. He didn't lie to me. Not often." Tyrion watched the king's hands curl and uncurl. Hands that had broken a prince. Hands that now looked uncertain what to do with grief. "They say he died quickly," Robert went on, as if he could bully the world into rewriting the truth. "A sickness, a coughing, an old man's end." Tyrion thought of Pycelle's soft assurances, of Varys' silk-smooth sympathies, of Cersei's eyes that never cried unless it benefited her. He said carefully, "Men die quickly when it is useful." Robert stared at him. The gods would seem to hold its breath. "You're saying," Robert began. "I'm saying I would not trust the story as far as I could throw you," Tyrion said. Robert's mouth opened, then closed. He looked away, toward the black pool, toward the heart tree's pale face. "Ned," he said suddenly. "I asked him. Gods, I asked him. I told him I needed him. And he will come," Tyrion said, because he believed it. Ned Stark was the sort of man who could be commanded by friendship the way other men were commanded by fear. Robert's jaw worked. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe he'll tell me no, and I'll have to drag him south by the scruff." He swung his gaze back. "What about you?" Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "What about me?" "What would you do?" Robert said. "If I gave you the job?" "The job." Tyrion felt the words settle in his chest like a coin dropped into a deep well. Hand of the king. The second most powerful man in the realm. The man who signed and judged and ordered and died when kings needed someone else to blame. Tyrion's first instinct was to laugh. His second was to measure the room of the realm like a gambler measuring a table. "I would do what your council has avoided," he said slowly. "I would count. I would cut. I would find where the rot begins. And I would make enemies." Robert grinned, sharp and sudden. "Good," he said. "I'm bored of friends." Behind them, in the edge of torchlight, Tyrion caught a glimpse of movement. Green velvet, a pale hand on a stone. Cersei, watching, listening, Jaime's shadow beside her. The queen's gaze met Tyrion's for an instant. There was hatred in it, yes, but also calculation, as if she had just been handed a new problem and was already deciding how to solve it. Robert slapped Tyrion's shoulder with enough force to make him stagger. "Come," the king said. "Let's go back before my wife thinks I've been murdered by trees." Tyrion steadied himself, wine still warm in his belly, winter still cold in his lungs. He looked up at the heart tree's carved face. Quiet judges, he thought. Quiet witnesses. Winterfell woke to hoofbeats and farewells and the scrape of departure. The king's party moved like a small army. Banners, guards, wagons of wine and cloth, servants bustling to keep nobles comfortable as they rolled toward the south. Tyrion watched the castle recede through the wheelhouse window, stone towers fading into the morning mist. Robert rode at the head, large enough to look like a king even without trying. Cersei's litter followed with its stiff curtains and whispered insults. Jaime rode alongside it, close enough to be a promise and a threat. Tyrion's position in the procession was a kind of joke the world would never tire of. The dwarf in the wheelhouse, the half-man tucked away like cargo. He had learned to use such jokes as cover. Men were careless around what they considered harmless. He had not expected the king to be careless around him. The night before, as the feast guttered out and drunken songs turned sour, Robert had called for parchment in front of half the hall. He had scrawled his name with a heavy hand, sealing it with wax as if he were sealing a tavern wager. He had done it with Cersei's face a mask and Ned Stark's eyes narrowing in wary confusion. "Jon's gone," Robert had said, loud enough for the hall to hear. "I need a hand. Ned, you'll come south, you will, but I won't sit in King's Landing with my thumb up my arse while the council steals my boots. I'm naming Tyrion Lannister acting hand until I say otherwise." The words had hit the hall like a thrown tankard. Tyrion remembered the silence that followed, the way it had tasted. Shock, outrage, a kind of hungry curiosity from the lesser lords. Cersei's smile had been thin as a razor. Jaime had laughed, softly, as if delighted by the chaos. Renly had looked thrilled in a way Tyrion did not trust. Ned Stark had stood. "Robert," he had said, voice careful. "This is my decision," Robert had cut in. "And if you want to argue, do it tomorrow when I'm sober." Robert had not been sober this morning. He was rarely sober. Tyrion suspected the king had meant it anyway. Now the road stretched, and with every mile Tyrion's new title gained weight. A man could be named hand in a hall full of witnesses, but the realm did not truly believe until ink became action. The wheelhouse lurched over a rut. Tyrion steadied himself, the familiar ache in his legs flaring. He poured wine into a cup and considered the first action he would take once they reached King's Landing. There were so many options. Each one made a different enemy. He lifted the curtain slightly and looked out. Ned Stark rode not far behind the king, his posture stiff, his mind clearly elsewhere. His daughters rode with him, Sansa radiant with the dream of a prince, Arya hunched like she wished she could disappear into her horse's mane. Catelyn Stark had stayed at Winterfell, her farewell brief and fierce. Ned's gaze met Tyrion's for a heartbeat. There was suspicion there and disappointment and something else. An understanding, perhaps, that Robert had made a decision that could not be easily undone. Tyrion raised his cup in a small gesture, halfway between salute and apology. Ned did not return it. Later, as the procession stopped at a roadside inn to water horses and refill flasks, Jaime approached Tyrion's wheelhouse with the loose grace of a man who had never been refused anything he wanted. "Well," Jaime said, leaning in as if they were sharing a joke. "Father will be furious." Tyrion took a sip of wine. "Father is furious even when he sleeps." Jaime's smile showed teeth. "Cersei is furious awake. That's her natural state," Tyrion said. "Some women blush. She burns." Jaime's gaze flicked past Tyrion, toward the king laughing with men-at-arms, toward Ned Stark speaking quietly to his guards. "Are you afraid?" Jaime asked, softly enough that no one else would hear. Tyrion met his brother's eyes. "Of you," he said. "Always." Jaime's laughter was genuine. "Not of me," he said. "Of the chair." Tyrion looked down the road, where the south waited like a mouth. "I've spent my whole life being told where I'm allowed to sit," he said. "It will be novel to choose my own seat." Jaime watched him for a moment longer, then straightened. "Try not to get killed," he said, as if it were a casual kindness. Tyrion's mouth twisted. "Try not to kill me," he replied. Jaime rode away smiling, and Tyrion watched him go with the uneasy certainty that some brothers were more dangerous when they meant well. King's Landing smelled like sweat and tanneries and ambition. Winterfell had smelled of pine and cold stone and honest smoke. Tyrion decided, within moments of passing through the gates, that he preferred honest smoke. The Red Keep rose above the city like a wound that refused to heal. Its walls were red as dried blood, its towers sharp as teeth. Inside its courtyards, the court swarmed. Lords eager to be seen, servants eager not to be trampled. Gold cloaks pretending their loyalties were bought only by coin. Robert complained loudly about the heat, about the dust, about the way the city stared at him. "They stare like I'm some damned mummer," he grumbled, as if he had not spent years enjoying the sound of his own legend. Tyrion stepped down from his wheelhouse and felt the stones beneath his boots. He carried his cane in one hand and his cup in the other, because if the realm insisted on seeing him as a dwarf, he would at least be a comfortable dwarf. Varys glided toward him first, as predictable as sunrise. "My lord Hand," the eunuch purred, eyes bright with pleasure that might have been sincere. "What a delight! The Red Keep has been yearning for your wit." "The Red Keep yearns for many things," Tyrion said. "Wit is not usually among them." Varys laughed softly. "You do the castle a kindness merely by existing within it." Peter Baelish appeared as if he had been standing there the whole time and Tyrion had simply failed to notice. An annoying talent. Littlefinger's smile was quick and intimate, as if they were old friends and not strangers linked only by mutual distrust. "My lord," Baelish said, "the city rejoices. Truly, a man of sense in the Tower of the Hand at last." Tyrion glanced at him. A man of sense would have refused. Baelish's eyes glittered. "And a man of sense rarely rises." Pycelle huffed up behind them, chain of office clinking, face full of solemn concern. "My lord Hand," he wheezed. "How unexpected this is. His Grace has always been impulsive." Robert strode past, hearing the last word. "Impulsive," he barked. "I'll show you impulsive, old man."
"Tyrion, come."
Tyrion followed. The courtyard's eyes followed too. He could feel them like fingers. Some looked at him with laughter, some with pity, some with hate that had never needed a reason beyond his name. They entered the throne room. Even empty, it felt full. The Iron Throne sat at the far end, a jagged mountain of blades that looked like a monument to bad judgment. Tyrion had seen it before, but it never failed to impress him with how thoroughly it embodied the Targaryen's gift for symbolism. Rule built on swords, and the promise that the swords would not stay quiet. Robert stopped before it, staring as if it had personally offended him. "Ugly thing," he muttered. "Aerys loved it. Should have told me enough." He turned to face Tyrion, and for a moment the king's eyes were clear. "You're my hand," Robert said, "which means you do the work and I do the drinking, and if anyone complains you tell them to go to hell." Cersei entered then, gliding, green eyes bright as polished emeralds. "Robert," she said, "this is madness." Robert's grin returned. "Ah," he said, "and here I thought you liked madness. You married me." Cersei's gaze slid to Tyrion, and her smile was a blade hidden in silk. "Brother," she said, as if the word tasted bitter. "How charming." "Your Grace," Tyrion said, bowing just enough to be polite without kneeling. She stepped closer. "Do you know what happens to hands in King's Landing?" she asked softly. "They do the work," Tyrion said. "They die," she corrected. Robert laughed, loud, and clapped Tyrion's shoulder again. "Then don't die," he said, as if it were an instruction one could simply obey.
Come.
Council. The small council chamber was a circle of power disguised as a table. Tyrion took his seat where Jon Arryn had once sat, and felt the chair's memory beneath him. He could almost hear the old hands sigh. Around him, men arranged their faces. Varys smiled. Baelish smiled. Pycelle looked pious. Barristan Selmy stood like a statue carved from honor. Renly lounged, handsome and bored, already enjoying the scandal. Cersei sat at Robert's side with the stillness of a cat about to strike. Tyrion set his cup down, folded his hands, and met their eyes one by one. "Right," he said. "Let's see what we're all pretending not to know." The first council meeting began the way most battles did, with courtesies sharpened into weapons. Baelish presented numbers like gifts. "The crown's incomes remain steady," he said lightly, "though of course his grace's generosity is a polite word for waste," Tyrion said, and watched Baelish's smile twitch. Robert snorted. "Hear that? He's got you, little finger." Baelish spread his hands. "If the realm wishes to accuse me of faithfully serving the king's pleasure, I plead guilty." Tyrion reached for the ledgers and flipped them open. The ink swam in neat columns. Gold in, gold out, promises made, debts stacked like stones. He read for a minute, not because he needed to but because silence unsettled men who lived on talk. When he looked up, Baelish was still smiling. "Where?" Tyrion asked, tapping the page. "Does this go?" "To the necessary expenses of governance," Baelish replied smoothly. "And this?" Tyrion asked, tapping another line. "A shipment of grain," Baelish said. "And this?" Tyrion pressed. "A contract with a Peter," Tyrion said, using his name like a thumb on a bruise. "If I keep tapping, will you keep inventing?" Baelish's eyes sharpened. "My lord hand," he said, still pleasant. "The kingdom is not a counting house. Numbers move. They flow. So does blood," Tyrion said. "Yet somehow men keep track of how much of it is spilled." Renly laughed, delighted. "Oh, I like him," he said. "He's dreadful." Robert leaned back in his chair and watched as if this were a tournament. He wanted spectacle. Tyrion could use that. He closed the ledger and slid it back. "We have debts," he said, speaking to the room rather than Baelish. "Immense ones. To the Iron Bank, to House Lannister, to half the merchants who can afford to lend. The crown is a beggar in a gilt cloak." Cersei's eyes flashed at the mention of House Lannister. "The crown is supported by Lannister gold," she said, voice cold. "It has been supported for years. And paid for it," Tyrion said. "In influence, in silence, in choices made with someone else's purse." Robert's smile soured. "Enough," he snapped, though not at Tyrion alone. He hated being reminded of weakness. Tyrion softened his voice. "Your Grace," he said, "I do not say this to shame you. I say it because if we do not know the truth, we cannot fix it." Pycelle bobbed his head. "Wise," he murmured. "Very wise. Jon Arryn always said." "What did Jon Arryn say?" Tyrion asked, turning on him with sudden focus. Pycelle blinked. "He said many things." Tyrion watched the old man's eyes flick to Cersei, just briefly. It was enough. Barristan Selmy shifted slightly, attention sharpening. Varys's smile did not change, but his gaze grew intent, as if he were watching a spider sense a vibration on its web. Robert waved a hand. "Jon's dead," he said, impatient. "Leave the dead to their gods." "That," Tyrion said quietly, "is how men like Jon Arryn end up dead." The room went still. Cersei's fingers tightened on her cup. "Are you accusing someone?" she asked, all innocence and venom. Tyrion met her eyes. "Not yet," he said. "I prefer to accuse with proof." Robert barked a laugh, though there was discomfort in it. "Proof," he said. "A hand who wants proof. Gods help us." Tyrion inclined his head. "The gods rarely do," he said. "So I will." He stood with a small wince, Cain helping him, and looked around the table. "I want every account," he said. "Every ledger, every contract. I want to know where the crown's gold goes, and I want to know why Jon Arryn asked questions that made men nervous." Baelish's smile returned, careful now. "Of course," he said. "I will see to it." "See that you do," Tyrion replied. When the meeting ended, Robert stomped off to find wine. Cersei rose like a queen rising from a throne and paused behind Tyrion. "You're playing a dangerous game," she murmured, lips close to his ear. Tyrion did not flinch. "I was born into a dangerous game," he said. "At least now I get to choose the rules." Cersei's breath was warm with anger. "You will regret this," she whispered. Tyrion smiled faintly. "I regret many things," he said. You, for instance. Her hand brushed his shoulder, light, almost affectionate. And then she was gone, leaving the faint scent of perfume and threat behind her. The tower of the hand felt different with Tyrion inside it. The rooms did not care who wore the chain. Stone was impartial. Yet servants moved more cautiously, as if the walls themselves might judge them for serving a Lannister who did not fit the story they wanted to tell. Tyrion sat at the desk that had belonged to Jon Arryn and, before him, to men whose names were now dust. The candles made islands of light in a sea of shadow. Ledgers lay open like entrails. Bronn lounged in the doorway, chewing something and looking faintly bored. Tyrion had hired him not because he trusted him, but because he trusted him to be honest about what he wanted. Gold, a simple desire. Tyrion found simple desires soothing in King's Landing. You sure you want me here, my lord? Bronn asked. Lots of people want you dead now. Then you're in the right place, Tyrion said without looking up. You can make money twice, once from my living, once from my dying. Bronn grinned. Fair. A soft sound, silk against stone, and Varys appeared as if he had been poured out of the shadows. My lord hand, he said, voice gentle. Burning the midnight oil? Midnight wine, Tyrion corrected, lifting his cup. Varys's eyes flicked over the desk. So diligent, he murmured. So unwise. Tyrion set the cup down. You came to warn me? He asked. I came to admire you, Varys said. It is rare to see a man walk into a pit of vipers and begin counting their teeth. And yet you live among them, Tyrion said. You must enjoy the view. Varys smiled, unfazed. I enjoy knowledge, he said, and I enjoy men who value it. Tyrion leaned back, cane across his knees. Then give me some, he said. Tell me how Jon Arryn died. Varys's smile softened into something almost sad. Officially, he said, an illness took him. Unofficially, there are whispers. Whispers from where? Tyrion asked. From everywhere, Varys replied. The kitchens, the brothels, the septs. Men speak when they think no one listens. And what do they say? Tyrion pressed. Varys's gaze went to the candle flame. They say Lord Arryn began asking questions, he said, about the king's children. Tyrion felt the words land with a quiet weight. He had expected rot in the ledgers. He had expected theft. He had even expected murder. But the king's children, those were not merely coin. Those were succession. The kind of truth that did not stay contained. Why? Tyrion asked. Varys's fingers folded neatly. Perhaps he discovered something, he said. Perhaps he feared something. Perhaps he loved the king enough to risk his own life. Tyrion's mouth tightened. And you? He asked. Did you love him enough to tell him to stop? Varys's smile did not reach his eyes. Love is a dangerous word, he murmured. I serve the realm. So do poisoners, Tyrion said. Varys's laugh was quiet. Yes, he agreed. Sometimes. Bronn shifted in the doorway, alert. Someone's out there, he said, nodding toward the corridor. Varys turned his head slightly, listening. Then he smiled. Only your new friends, he said. They are curious. They want to know if you will survive your first week. Tyrion stared at the candles, at the ink, at the shadows that seemed to press closer when a man admitted the wrong kind of truth. If Jon Arryn asked questions about the king's children, he said slowly, then his death was not an illness. It was a message. Varys inclined his head. Perhaps, he said, or perhaps it was a mercy. Tyrion snorted. There is no mercy in King's Landing, he said. Only different kinds of cruelty. Varys stepped closer, voice soft as a confession. Be careful, my lord hand, he said. You have the king's favor today. Tomorrow, he may wake with a headache and decide he never liked you at all. Tyrion looked up at him. Then I will make myself useful enough that he can't afford to forget me, he said. Varys's eyes gleamed. Ah, he murmured. A Lannister who understands necessity. How refreshing. When Varys slipped away into shadow again, Tyrion sat for a long moment, listening to the city's distant roar. Somewhere below, men drank and fought and prayed. Somewhere in this castle, someone had killed Jon Arryn, and someone had done it because of children. Tyrion took a long drink of wine and reached for fresh parchment. "Bronn," he said, "tomorrow we visit the city watch." Bronn grinned. "To make friends." Tyrion's smile was thin. "To buy them," he said. "Friendship is too expensive." The city watch smelled of sweat, cheap ale, and resentment. Tyrion found it comforting in a way the Red Keep never was. At least here, men did not pretend their motives were noble. Janos Slynt greeted him with too many teeth. "My Lord Hand," he said, bowing shallowly. "An honor. We don't often see such important visitors." "You see coin often enough," Tyrion replied, and watched Slynt's eyes flick to the chest being carried in behind him. Bronn set the chest on a table with a solid thunk. Tyrion opened it. Gold glimmered in the dim light. The gold cloak's eyes followed like starving dogs. Tyrion turned to face the lined-up men. Some were young, some were old. Most had the hard look of men who had learned the city would chew them up if they didn't bite first. "You're underpaid," Tyrion said. The bluntness startled them more than any speech would have. Slynt cleared his throat. "We are underpaid," Tyrion repeated louder. "Underfed, under-equipped. And yet you're expected to keep order in a city full of thieves and liars and lords who think their blood entitles them to break the law." Slynt shifted, uneasy. Jaime Lannister's distant presence pricked at Tyrion's awareness like a needle. He didn't look concerned. He looked entertained. Tyrion lifted a handful of coins and let them spill back into the chest. "This," he said, "is the crown remembering you exist." Slynt's smile returned, greedy. "Your generosity." "Not generosity," Tyrion said. "Investment." He stepped down from the stone and walked the line, meeting eyes. "You will be paid on time," he said. "You will have boots that don't leak. You will have cloaks that don't rot. And in return, you will do what you are meant to do." "And what's that?" a man asked, voice rough. Tyrion stopped before him. "You will keep the peace," he said. "Not for whoever slips you a purse in the alley. Not for whatever lord threatens your family. For the city. For the king." A few men snorted. Tyrion smiled. "Yes," he said. "I know. Sounds like a song." Slynt leaned in. "My Lord Hand," he murmured. "We are loyal. Always have been." Tyrion turned and looked at him. "To whom?" he asked softly. Slynt hesitated just long enough to answer honestly with his eyes. "Not to the king. Not to the realm. To whoever paid." Tyrion nodded as if satisfied. "Good," he said. "Then you will be loyal to me." Slynt's smile tightened. "Of course," he said. Tyrion closed the chest. "You will also," he said, "give me names. Captains who take bribes. Men who sell information. Men who answer to someone in the Red Keep instead of to their commander." Slynt's face flickered. "That's necessary," Tyrion said, and his voice left no room for argument. "If someone murdered Jon Arryn, they did not do it alone. They had help. They had eyes. They had men willing to look away." The gold cloaks watched him now with something like interest. Tyrion felt it, the shift from amusement to caution. A hand who paid was tolerable. A hand who asked questions was dangerous. Jaime drifted closer, smile lazy. "Our brother playing commander," he said, loud enough for Slynt to hear. Tyrion glanced at him. "Our brother playing knight," he replied. Jaime laughed. "Touché," he said, and leaned in, voice quieter. "Cersei won't like this." "I've noticed," Tyrion said. Jaime's eyes flicked toward the gold cloaks. "You're building yourself a little army," he said. Tyrion shut the chest with a click. "I'm building myself time," he said. "In this city, that's the only thing worth buying." As they left the barracks, Tyrion felt the city's stink wrap around him like a cloak. Somewhere nearby, bells rang for a sept service. Somewhere else, a man screamed and was ignored. King's Landing did not care who held the hand's chain, but it did care who held the knives. The raven arrived at Winterfell with black wings and darker words. Eddard Stark broke the seal with hands that did not shake. Catelyn watched his face as he read, and saw the color drain from it like blood from a wound. "What is it?" she asked, already knowing it would be bad. Ravens did not fly north with good news. Ned's mouth moved once, as if the words resisted being spoken. "Lisa," he said finally. "She says," he swallowed. "She says Jon Arryn was murdered." Catelyn's fingers tightened on the stone parapet. "By whom?" she whispered, though her eyes already held the answer she feared. Ned looked up, and in his gaze was grief, anger, and a sudden cold clarity. "By the Lannisters," he said. Catelyn's breath caught. For a moment, Winterfell felt smaller, as if the castle itself had drawn inward against the threat. Robb stood nearby, trying to look like a man and not a boy, his jaw clenched. "But the king has gone south," he said. "With them." "And Tyrion Lannister is hand," Catelyn said, voice sharp. She spat the title like it was poison. "A Lannister with the king's trust." Ned stared out over the yard, where men trained with swords under falling drizzle. "Robert named him," he said, as if the name could make the act less dangerous. "In my hall." Catelyn stepped closer, fierce. "Then you must go," she said. "Not to be hand Robert has already chosen. To protect him. To protect us. If Jon Arryn was murdered, it was for a reason." Ned's eyes met hers. "The children," he murmured, almost to himself. Catelyn frowned. "What?" she asked. Ned shook his head slightly, as if dismissing a thought too wild. "Nothing," he said. "Only, Jon was asking questions. He wrote to me before he died. He wanted to speak." Catelyn's fear sharpened into something like resolve. "Then you go," she said. "And you take the girls. Sansa wants her prince. Arya will hate it, but she will live. Winterfell will be safe with Robb." Robb's shoulders squared. "I can hold it," he said, voice steady. Ned's gaze lingered on him. His heir, his son, suddenly closer to the weight of lordship than any boy should be. Then Ned looked back to Catelyn, and she saw the choice settle in him like iron. "I will go," Ned said. Catelyn exhaled, but there was no relief in it, only the sense of a door closing behind them. Far to the south, in the Red Keep, Tyrion Lannister was counting gold and asking about dead men. If Lisa's letter was true, then Tyrion sat in the most dangerous chair in the realm, surrounded by his own blood. Catelyn wondered, in the privacy of her fear, whether that made him safer or doomed. Pycelle's chambers smelled of dust, herbs, and secrets. Tyrion had always found old men comforting until he learned how often old men were bought. Grand Maester Pycelle rose with effort when Tyrion entered, chain clinking like a warning. "My lord Hand," he said, voice warm with false humility. "How may I serve?" Tyrion smiled politely. "By remembering," he said. Pycelle blinked. "Remembering?" he echoed, as if the word were foreign. Tyrion stepped closer, cane tapping softly. "Jon Arryn," he said, "in his last days, his visitors, his questions, his fears." Pycelle's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the guards Tyrion had stationed there. Not gold cloaks, Lannister men. Men Cersei could not command without consequence. "I am an old man," Pycelle said, hands spreading helplessly. "My mind is selective," Tyrion finished for him. "Yes, I've heard." Pycelle's cheeks reddened. "My lord," Tyrion lifted a hand, stilling him. "Let's not pretend," he said softly. "You served Aerys. You served Robert. You serve whoever holds power. That is your gift. It is also your weakness." Pycelle swallowed. "I serve the realm," he murmured. Tyrion's smile turned sharp. "Varys says that too," he said. "At least Varys is honest about how dangerous it is." He moved to the table and picked up a page Pycelle had been studying. It was a genealogy, names, marriages, bloodlines traced in careful ink. Tyrion's eyes lingered on the little notes. Hair color, eye color, the quiet certainty of inherited traits. The seed is strong, Tyrion murmured, reading a phrase scrawled in the margin. How quaint. Pycelle's lips parted slightly, then closed again. Tyrion looked up. Jon Arryn was reading these, he said. Why? Pycelle's eyes widened with sudden, genuine fear. Old men feared many things, but humiliation was among the sharpest. He was looking at the royal children, Pycelle whispered, at their hair. Tyrion's stomach tightened. And what did he find? He asked, though part of him already knew. Pycelle's gaze darted, as if the walls might be listening. He said they, Pycelle's voice cracked. He said they did not look like their father. Tyrion exhaled slowly. He thought of Robert's black hair, his broad, brutal features. He thought of Joffrey's golden curls, his sharp green eyes. He thought of the old stories, Baratheon blood, strong as a hammer blow. The seed is strong, Tyrion repeated, and now the phrase felt like a blade. Pycelle clutched at his chain. My lord, he begged. You must understand, You only served, Tyrion said. Yes, you always do. He placed the page back on the table with care. Did Jon Arryn suspect the queen? He asked. Pycelle's mouth worked, reluctant. Then, he spoke with Stannis, he whispered. Before he died. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. Stannis. Dutiful, grim, unyielding Stannis. A man who would rather break than bend. If Jon had told him, Tyrion straightened. Thank you, Grand Maester, he said, voice suddenly gentle. Pycelle sagged with relief, mistaking gentleness for mercy. Tyrion turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing, he said. Pycelle looked up hopefully. If anyone asks, Tyrion said, you will tell them I came to discuss the king's health. Pycelle nodded quickly. Yes, my lord, of course. Tyrion stepped into the corridor, cane tapping, mind racing. Children, hair, Stannis, Jon Arryn dead. In King's Landing, truths did not sit quietly. They bled and they made men kill. Ned Stark arrived like a storm that refused to announce itself. Tyrion was waiting when he came into the Red Keep, because Varys had warned him an hour before with that soft, poisonous courtesy of his. Lord Stark approaches, the eunuch had said. He looks troubled. Tyrion watched Ned stride down the corridor, travel dust on his boots, cloak damp from rain, face carved from duty. Behind him, Sansa and Arya were held back by guards for a moment. Protocol pretending it mattered. Sansa looking around with wide-eyed wonder, Arya looking around with sharp-eyed suspicion. Ned's gaze locked on Tyrion. For an instant, Tyrion saw it. A man who had come south to serve his king, only to find a Lannister in the seat meant for him. A man who had received a letter accusing Lannisters of murder. A man who had never liked the game and had been dragged into it anyway. My Lord Stark, Tyrion said, stepping forward. He could have been formal. He chose not to. Welcome to the den. Ned's jaw tightened. Tyrion, he said, and the use of his name was as close to warmth as he could manage. What have you done? Tyrion's mouth twitched. I've sat in a chair, he said. It turns out that is enough. Ned's eyes flicked to the hand's chain at Tyrion's throat. Robert, he said. Is he alive? Tyrion said, loudly. From behind a door, Robert's laughter boomed, followed by the crash of something heavy and a servant's frantic apology. Ned exhaled as if he had been holding his breath since Winterfell. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. Lisa wrote to me, he said. She says Jon Arryn was murdered. Tyrion's expression stilled. So you came to tell the king, he said. I came to protect him, Ned corrected. From whatever killed Jon. From whatever sits in this castle wearing smiles. Tyrion glanced upward. On the balcony above, Cersei stood watching like a queen in a painted story, green eyes fixed on them, her face unreadable. Jaime leaned against a column nearby, arms folded, amusement lazy at the corners of his mouth. Varys hovered in shadow as if he had always been part of the stone. "So," Tyrion said quietly, "we want the same thing." Ned's brows drew together. "I don't believe that," he said. "You should," Tyrion replied, "because if Jon Arryn was murdered, it was not for coin. It was for something worse." Ned's gaze hardened. "What?" he demanded. Tyrion hesitated. He could not throw this truth like a stone into open water. It would splash and drown them all. But he could not hold it forever either. He chose a different kind of honesty, one Ned could accept. "I don't know yet," Tyrion lied, and the lie tasted bitter. "But I'm close." Ned stared at him for a long moment, weighing him. Tyrion could almost see the struggle. Honor battling suspicion, duty battling disgust. Finally, Ned said, "If you are lying." "I usually am," Tyrion said, "but not about this." Ned's mouth tightened again, but there was something like grim agreement in it. "Then we speak privately," he said. Tyrion nodded once. "Tonight," he said, "in the Tower of the Hand." Above them, Cersei's gaze did not leave Tyrion's face. Tyrion felt it like heat on skin. He imagined Jon Arryn in his last days, hunched over lineage pages, whispering truths that could not be spoken aloud. He imagined Stannis grinding his teeth as he carried duty like a burden. He imagined Robert, laughing, drinking, unaware that his kingdom rested on a secret sharp enough to cut it in half. Tyrion turned slightly, just enough to meet Cersei's eyes. He smiled at her, small and polite, the smile of a man who knew something he should not. Cersei's expression did not change. But Tyrion saw it, for the briefest instant, the flicker of fear. And in King's Landing, fear was the truest language of all. Eddard Stark arrived without ceremony, as if ceremony were another southern disease he refused to catch. He came in with rain still clinging to his cloak, with the smell of wet wool and road dust and the north. He shut the door behind him himself, not trusting servants with the sound of secrets. Bronze eyes tracked him like a wolf's. Tyrion did not rise from the chair. He only lifted his cup slightly, offering the smallest courtesy he could without surrendering the room. "Lord Stark," Tyrion said, "you look as though you've ridden straight through a bad dream." Ned's gaze went to the open ledgers, the scattered parchment, the thick book with its cracked spine, then back to Tyrion. "This dream," he said, "has your family's face." Tyrion's mouth curved faintly. "My family has many faces," he said, "most of them ugly." "Sit." Ned did not sit. "Lisa Arryn says the Lannisters murdered her husband," he said, as if the words were nails and he meant to drive them straight through Tyrion's skull. "You are a Lannister. You sit in Jon Arryn's chair. Tell me why I shouldn't draw my sword and end this." Bron's hand moved, not to his sword, but close enough to promise it. Tyrion raised a finger, stilling him. "Because," Tyrion said, "you're not a fool, and because if you kill me, you will still have to deal with Cersei." Ned's jaw tightened at the name. "So you admit she—" "I admit nothing," Tyrion said. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, and let the candlelight catch the chain at his throat. "But I'm not blind. Jon Arryn did not die for coin. He died for something that threatens the realm." Ned's eyes did not soften, but something in them sharpened into focus. "What?" he demanded. Tyrion watched him for a beat. He had spent his life learning how to choose words that would not be used against him. With Ned Stark, there was a different danger: words could be used against the world. "I have been asking about Jon Arryn," Tyrion said. Quietly. "People forget I can do anything quietly. They whisper. They always whisper. And there is one whisper that returns again and again." Ned's silence pressed. Tyrion could hear the city beyond the window, hear the faint jangle of chains on a distant guard, hear his own heartbeat like a drum. "The king's children," Tyrion said at last. Ned's face did not change, but the air in the room did. It felt suddenly colder, as if the north had slipped past the door with him. "Explain," Ned said. Tyrion reached to the lineage book. ran his fingers over the worn cover. "I will," he said, "but not with oaths and suspicion. With proof." Ned's gaze flicked to the book again, then to Tyrion's eyes. "And you," he said, voice low, "why would you help me find proof against your own blood?" Tyrion's laugh was soft and humorless. "Because my blood has tried to drown me since the day I was born," he said. "Because if the realm burns, it won't care whether I was loyal. It will burn me all the same." Ned stared at him, and Tyrion could feel the struggle behind those gray eyes. The man wanted the world to be simple. Good and evil, truth and lies, wolves and lions. King's Landing did not allow such comfort. Finally, Ned said, "If this is a trap." "It's not," Tyrion said. "If it were, I'd make it prettier." Bronn snorted. Tyrion gestured toward the chair opposite. Ned hesitated, then sat with stiff reluctance, as if the wood might corrupt him. Tyrion poured wine into a second cup and slid it across. Ned did not touch it. "You asked why you shouldn't draw your sword," Tyrion said. "Here is my answer. Because the only way you win in this city is by knowing where the blade must fall. And right now, you're swinging at shadows." Ned's eyes stayed on him. "Then show me the man," he said. Tyrion opened the book. The book smelled like old leather and older lies. Tyrion turned pages with care, not because he respected the book, but because he respected what men killed for. "This is what Jon Arryn was reading," Tyrion said, tapping the margin. He wasn't interested in ancient kings. He wasn't nostalgic. He was hunting. Ned's gaze followed Tyrion's finger. The line of House Baratheon marched down the page like soldiers. Black hair, blue eyes, strong sons, stubborn daughters. Trait after trait, consistent as winter. "The seed is strong," Ned murmured, reading the scrawl. His voice tightened around the phrase as if it were a prayer he did not want to speak. Tyrion watched him absorb it. "Jon Arryn wrote that," he said, "not to be poetic, to remind himself of a truth he could not say aloud." Ned's eyes lifted. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From a man who pretends to be forgetful," Tyrion said. "Grand Maester Pycelle." Ned's nostrils flared, disgust sharp. "Pycelle," he said. "He served Aerys. He serves whoever holds the leash." He admitted Jon Arryn was comparing the king's bastards to the king's children, Tyrion said. He admitted Jon spoke with Stannis Baratheon before he died. Ned went very still. "Stannis," he said, "duty's name spoken like iron." "Yes," Tyrion said. "If Stannis knows, then the truth is already a spark in dry grass. We're simply deciding whether it becomes a wildfire." Ned's hand clenched on the edge of the desk. "Robert must be told," he said immediately, as if the solution were as simple as speaking. Tyrion held up a hand. "Robert must be shown," he corrected. "If you tell him, he'll rage, he'll drink, and by morning he'll convince himself you lied to insult him, or Cersei will convince him. The truth must stand in front of him and refuse to move." Ned's jaw flexed. "Then we find proof," he said. Tyrion nodded. "We do," he said, "and we do it quietly. No ravens, no speeches, no shouting in hallways where ears grow like mushrooms." Ned's gaze flicked toward the window, toward the city. "How?" he asked. Tyrion turned the page again and pointed to a small note beside a bastard's name. "The king has bastards in this city," he said. "A boy in an armorer's shop, a child at a brothel. Others likely. They are the king's blood written plainly on flesh." Ned's eyes narrowed. "You know where they are," he said. "I know where some are," Tyrion replied. "Men tell me things in this city. They assume a dwarf hears only jokes." Bronn shifted, impatience turning to interest. "We going to go meet a bunch of royal bastards?" he asked. "Sounds dangerous. Might pay well." "It will pay," Tyrion said. "In survival." Ned's face tightened at the word brothel, at the implication of children in such places. "Those children must be protected," he said, voice rough. Tyrion studied him. There was genuine anger there, Not for himself, not for pride, but for the innocent who would become collateral in a war of crowns. Tyrion did not often respect men. He respected that. "They will be," Tyrion said, "if we live long enough to protect them." Ned finally touched the cup of wine, not to drink, but to push it away, as if rejecting the city's flavor. "When?" he asked. "Now," Tyrion said, closing the book. "Before someone else realizes you and I are speaking." Ned rose. His honor rose with him like a cloak. Tyrion stood more slowly, cane taking some of his weight. Bronn opened the door. The corridor beyond was empty, but emptiness in the Red Keep meant only that the listeners were better hidden. Tyrion took the lineage book under his arm. "If anyone asks," he told Ned, "we're discussing taxes." Ned's mouth tightened. "Is that supposed to make it less suspicious?" he asked. "In this city," Tyrion said, "nothing is more suspicious than honesty. Taxes will bore them." They slipped out into the castle's veins, moving like men who knew the heart they approached could kill. The street of steel rang with the sound of labor. Hammer on anvil, bellows breathing, men shouting orders over the clamor. Tyrion liked it more than the Red Keep. There was honesty in metal. Could be shaped, but it could not be lied to. Tobo Mott's shop was hot enough to make the air shimmer. Tyrion stepped inside and felt sweat bead instantly at his temples. The smell of coal and iron filled his lungs. Gendry was at the anvil, thick-armed, broad-shouldered, his black hair plastered to his forehead. He lifted the hammer and brought it down with a rhythm that belonged to a man too angry or too focused to tire. Each strike sent sparks scattering like bright insects. Ned Stark watched him as if looking at a ghost. Tyrion saw it. The shape of Robert Baratheon's strength in a younger body, the stubborn set of jaw, the heavy hands that could have held a warhammer if they'd been given the chance. Here was the seed made flesh. Tobo Mott emerged from the back, wiping his hands on a cloth. His eyes widened when he saw Tyrion, widened further when he saw Ned Stark. "My lords," he said quickly, bowing. "An honor. What can I?" "Quiet," Tyrion said, not unkindly. "We're only here to look." Mott swallowed and nodded. His gaze went to Ned, uneasy. Gendry noticed the silence and looked up, hammer still in his hand. His eyes went first to Ned, gray eyes meeting gray eyes. And something in his expression shifted, not recognition but instinct. Then his gaze dropped to Tyrion and hardened into the wary contempt common men wore like armor against nobles. "What do you want?" Gendry asked, blunt. Tyrion smiled faintly. "To buy something," he said. "It's what Lannisters do best." Gendry's mouth twisted. "We don't sell to Lannisters," he said. Bronn laughed softly. "Everyone sells to Lannisters," he murmured. Ned took a step forward, and the forge light painted his face in harsh colors. "What is your name?" he asked. Gendry lifted his chin. "Gendry," he said. "I'm the apprentice." Ned's gaze flicked over him again. Black hair, strong frame, the shape of his face. 1,000 small proofs. Tyrion watched Ned's eyes tighten, as if the truth were physically painful. "How long have you worked here?" Ned asked. "Since I was a boy," Gendry said. "Mott took me in." "And before that?"
Ned pressed.
Gendry's eyes narrowed. "I don't know," he said. "I don't remember. I was in an orphanage. A man came once, paid for me to be apprenticed here. That's all." Tyrion's throat tightened. The man had been Jon Arryn or Varys or someone who served the realm in secret. Someone had made sure Robert's bastard did not die in Flea Bottom. Ned's voice dropped. "Did you ever know your mother?" he asked. Gendry's expression went blank. "No," he said. "She died when I was little. That's what they told me." Ned looked as if he wanted to say something more. Something gentle, something honorable. But honor did not give men the words for this. Tyrion stepped in before Ned could break the fragile quiet. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small pouch of coins. "You make good work," he told Gendry. "Better than most men twice your age." Gendry stared at the pouch like it was an insult. "This isn't charity," Tyrion said. "It's payment for silence." If anyone asks, you didn't see us. You didn't speak to us. You went back to hitting metal until your arms fell off. Gendry's jaw worked. Pride battled practicality. In the end, practicality won because it often did among the poor. He snatched the pouch and tucked it away, angry at himself for needing it. Ned watched the exchange, disapproval flickering. Tyrion met his gaze briefly, as if to say, "This is how you keep men alive in King's Landing." They stepped outside again, into the street's noise. Ned's face was pale beneath the southern sun. "That boy," Ned said, voice tight. "He is Robert's," Tyrion finished. "Yes." Ned's eyes closed for a moment, as if he were saying a prayer only he could hear. When he opened them again, there was fury there. Fury not at Tyrion, not at the boy, but at the lie that had sat on the Iron Throne wearing a crown. "Now," Ned said, "we must see the children in the castle." Tyrion's mouth twisted. "We will," he said, "but first we see one more bastard. One the king cannot deny because she is too small to lie." Ned's expression hardened. "Where?" he demanded. Tyrion gestured toward the lower city, where the streets narrowed and the air grew foul. "Flea Bottom," he said, "where truths breed like rats." Flea Bottom stank of sour ale, piss, and desperation. The streets were too narrow, the buildings leaning in as if to squeeze the life out of anyone who passed. Tyrion moved through it with practiced ease. Men here did not stare at a dwarf because they had seen worse. Ned Stark moved like a man walking through mud he could not wash off. Bronn walked with them, hand near his sword, eyes alert. He looked comfortable, which Tyrion found reassuring in the way one might be reassured by a sharp knife. The brothel stairs creaked under their weight. The air inside was thick with sweat and perfume that tried too hard. Tyrion knocked once on a door and entered before anyone could refuse. Inside, a young woman sat on a bed with a baby in her arms. Her hair was tangled, her face tired, but her eyes were sharp with the kind of fear that had learned to pretend it was anger. "What do you want?" she demanded, clutching the child tighter. Tyrion lifted his hands slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Peace," he said, "and information." The baby made a small sound, a soft coo. Tyrion looked down. The child's hair was black as coal, her tiny fists clenched with startling strength. Ned stared at the infant as if struck. Tyrion saw him swallow, saw his hands curl, saw the father in him rage at the world. "Her name?" Tyrion asked gently. "Bara," the woman said, suspicious. Tyrion's gaze returned to the baby's hair. "A pretty name," he said. He looked back to the mother. "The father?" The woman's mouth tightened. "A man," she said. "A king," Tyrion corrected, and slid a coin across the table. Gold bought honesty faster than threats ever could. The woman's eyes flicked to the coin, then back to Tyrion. "He came," she said reluctantly. "Once, twice. He was drunk. He laughed a lot. He said he'd come again." Ned's face tightened with pain. "Robert," he whispered, as if the name were both blessing and curse. The woman blinked. "You know him?" she asked, suddenly afraid. Tyrion softened his voice further. "We know of him," he said. "We're not here to hurt you. Lords always say that," she spat. "Then they hurt you anyway." Ned took a step forward, and Tyrion saw him fighting his own disgust. The disgust of a man raised on honor, forced into a room where honor had been sold for bread. He forced his voice steady. "We will not harm you," he said. "We came because your child is in danger." The woman's grip tightened. "Danger from who?" she demanded. Tyrion's mouth tightened. He did not want to speak Cersei's name here. Names were dangerous. Names traveled. "From people who do not want the king's mistakes to be seen," Tyrion said carefully. "People who would rather kill a baby than allow a lie to die." The woman's face went pale. "No," she whispered. "No, she's nothing. She's proof," Ned said, voice raw. The baby squirmed, and the mother rocked her, panic turning her movements jerky. "Take your coin," she said. "Get out." Leave us alone." Tyrion looked at Ned, and Ned looked at the baby again, and Tyrion saw the decision settle in him like ice. "We cannot leave her," Ned said quietly. Tyrion nodded once. "We don't," he agreed. He turned back to the mother. "Listen," he said. "You will leave this place. Tonight, you will go somewhere I tell you, and men will guard you. You will be fed. You will be safe." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that?" she demanded. "What do you want from us?" Tyrion's smile was tired. "I want the realm not to drown in blood," he said. "And I want you to live. Consider it a rare Lannister indulgence." Ned's voice was low, fierce. "You will go," he told her, "if you love your child." Tears sprang to the woman's eyes, anger and fear twisting together. At last she nodded, small and broken. "Where?" she whispered. Tyrion gave Bronn a look. Bronn nodded once and slipped out, silent as a shadow. Tyrion crouched slightly, letting the baby see his face. Bara's eyes were dark, curious. She reached a tiny hand toward Tyrion's beard. For a moment, the room softened. Then the sound of laughter outside rose, and Tyrion remembered where they were. He stood. "We move quickly," he said, "before someone else remembers you exist." Ned's gaze lingered on the child as they left, and Tyrion saw something in him shift. This was no longer politics. This was a war against a cruelty that would kill babies to keep crowns. Tyrion understood that kind of war. Mourning in King's Landing did not cleanse anything. It only revealed yesterday's filth in brighter light. Tyrion entered the council chamber with new parchment in hand and an old anger in his chest. Ned Stark was already there, standing rather than sitting, as if chairs were a southern trap. Cersei sat at Robert's place with practiced ease, as if the king's absence were a garment she could wear without anyone daring to comment. Robert, Tyrion learned from a servant, was still in bed with a headache and a temper. Tyrion suspected the king's headache would last until the next cup of wine cured it, and the temper would last forever. Peter Baelish's smile greeted Tyrion like a familiar lie. "My Lord Hand," he said, "you look industrious." "I am," Tyrion said, taking his seat. "It's a dangerous habit in this room. I'm sure you'll all do your best to break me of it." Renly was not present. He had gone to visit someone's bed, no doubt. Pycelle looked as if he wished he could crawl under the table. Varys watched everyone. As always, like a man listening to music no one else could hear. Tyrion laid out the parchment. "An audit," he said, "of crown expenses. Full accounting. No exceptions." Baelish's smile thinned by a hair. "That will take time," he said. "Records must be gathered." "You've had years," Tyrion said. "I'm giving you days." Cersei's gaze was cold. "This obsession with coin," she said, "is beneath the hand of the king." "It's beneath the crown too," Tyrion replied. "Yet it's where we've ended up." Pycelle cleared his throat. "My Lord Hand," he began. "Such changes so swiftly could save the realm," Tyrion cut in. He slid a second parchment forward. "And this," he said, "is an order regarding the city watch." At that, Janoslin's name seemed to echo even though he was not in the room. Cersei's eyes sharpened. Baelish's attention became keen. "The city watch," Cersei said, voice smooth, "answers to the king. And the king," Tyrion said, "answers to his hand when he cannot be bothered." Barristan's eyes shifted slightly, the smallest approval. Ned watched, expression unreadable. "I will be appointing new captains," Tyrion continued, "and ensuring the watch is paid properly. In return, they will answer to the law, not to private purses." Baelish laughed softly. "Private purses," he said. "What a charming notion. A city of 500,000 souls is not ruled by laws, my lord. It is ruled by needs. And those needs," Tyrion said, "will be met by the crown instead of by whoever wants a gate opened." Cersei's fingers tightened on her cup. "You overreach," she said softly, dangerous as a whisper in a dark room. Tyrion met her gaze. "I have a very short reach," he said. I must overreach to touch anything at all. Varys chuckled, delighted. Pycelle did not. Ned finally spoke, voice rough as stone. Jon Arryn was murdered, he said suddenly, and the words landed in the chamber like a dropped sword. Silence snapped tight. Cersei's eyes flicked to him, unreadable. Baelish's smile did not change, but something behind it sharpened. Pycelle looked as if he might faint. Varys's gaze went bright with interest. Is that so? Cersei asked, all innocence. And who murdered him, Lord Stark? Ned's jaw clenched. Tyrion felt the danger. Ned wanted to speak the truth as if truth were armor. In this room, truth was kindling. We don't know yet, Tyrion said quickly, before Ned could answer. He turned it into something the chamber could swallow. But Lord Stark's concern is not without reason. Lord Arryn's death left a void. Voids attract scavengers. Baelish leaned back, lazy. Scavengers, he mused. Such ugly language. Tyrion's eyes stayed on him. Ugly things rarely require pretty names, he said. Cersei rose slowly. This conversation is tiresome, she said. His Grace will not be pleased to hear his council wastes time on rumors. His Grace, Tyrion said, will be pleased to hear his hand is preventing his city from being purchased one alley at a time. Cersei's smile was thin. You forget, she whispered, whose city this truly is. Tyrion watched her leave, green silk trailing like a snake through the door. When it shut, the room exhaled. Ned stared after her, fury barely contained. She knows, he said, voice low. Yes, Tyrion agreed softly. And now she knows you know. Varys's voice drifted like perfume. How exciting, he murmured. The game begins anew. Tyrion looked at the papers, at the seals, at the fragile scaffolding of order he was trying to build in a city that preferred chaos. He felt the clock ticking, loud in his bones. Cersei would not wait. Neither could he. The nursery smelled of milk and clean linen, a false innocence wrapped in silk. Tyrion stepped inside and felt the deception immediately. Nothing in the Red Keep was innocent, not even children. Myrcella looked up first, her face brightening with polite delight. Tommen was on the floor, cross-legged, cradling a kitten with solemn devotion. The kitten purred, unaware it lived in a castle where purring could be dangerous. Joffrey stood near the window, watching Tyrion approach as if watching a rat in a trap. His lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. Cersei rose from her chair with smooth grace. Brother, she said, how thoughtful to visit. I've always been thoughtful, Tyrion said. It's my one redeeming quality. Cersei's eyes narrowed slightly. To what do we owe this honor? She asked. Tyrion stepped closer to Tommen and crouched with a small wince. I heard there were kittens, he said, and Tommen's face lit up. This one's mine, Tommen said proudly, lifting the kitten as if presenting a treasure. Tyrion reached out and let the kitten sniff his fingers. Its tiny nose tickled his skin. For a heartbeat, Tyrion forgot crowns and murders and lies. Then Joffrey spoke. Don't touch that, Joffrey said, voice sharp. You'll poison it. Tommen flinched. The kitten squirmed. Cersei's gaze snapped to Joffrey, not in rebuke, but in quiet approval of dominance. Tyrion looked up at his nephew. Poison is usually subtler, he said mildly, but perhaps you know more about it than I do. Joffrey's smile tightened. Perhaps, he said. Myrcella drifted closer, curious. She was beautiful in the effortless way of children who had never been denied anything. Her hair was bright gold, her eyes green, her face delicate as Cersei's. Tyrion's stomach tightened again. The seed is strong. Not here. Cersei stepped between Tyrion and her children with the casual protectiveness of a lioness. You're here to insult us, she said softly. I'm here to look, Tyrion replied. It's what hands do. We look, and then we tell kings things they don't want to hear. Cersei's smile was thin. Robert doesn't want to hear anything from you, she whispered. He tolerates you because you amuse him. Then I will remain amusing, Tyrion said. He stood, Cain taking his weight, and let his gaze sweep the room. "Tell me," he said lightly, "does Joffrey still enjoy tormenting animals?" Cersei's eyes flashed. "Mind your tongue," she warned. Joffrey's smile sharpened. "He enjoys tormenting everyone," he said, as if proud of it. From the back of the room, Jaime laughed softly. "He takes after his mother," he said, voice lazy. Cersei turned her head, gaze like a blade. Jaime only shrugged, unbothered. Tyrion stepped toward Joffrey, close enough that the boy could smell wine on him and dislike it. "Do you know what makes a king?" Tyrion asked, voice gentle. Joffrey lifted his chin. "Power," he said immediately. Tyrion nodded. "Yes," he said. "And do you know what keeps it?" Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "Fear," he said. Tyrion's smile faded, just slightly. "Not always," he said. "Fear breaks. Love endures. Respect obeys. Fear runs the moment it sees an opening." Joffrey's face darkened. "Are you teaching me?" he snapped. "I'm warning you," Tyrion said quietly, "because if you ever sit the Iron Throne, you'll discover the throne doesn't care how pretty your crown is. It only cares how sharp your enemies are." Cersei's voice cut like ice. "Enough," she said. "Leave." Tyrion held her gaze. "Of course," he said. He looked down at Tommen once more. "Be kind," he told the boy softly, and Tommen nodded as if kindness were a command he could follow. Then Tyrion turned and walked out. In the corridor, Jaime fell into step beside him. "You enjoy poking her," Jaime observed. "It's the only way to make sure she's alive," Tyrion said. Jaime's smile was faint. "Be careful," he murmured. "She doesn't like being reminded you exist." Tyrion tapped his cane on stone. "Neither did father," he said. "Yet here I am." Behind them, in the nursery, Joffrey's voice rose in anger. Tyrion did not need to hear the words to know the tone. A prince who had never been denied anything did not learn restraint. He learned cruelty, and cruelty, Tyrion knew, was the easiest spark for a war. The ravens watched Tyrion write with black, unblinking eyes. He wondered what they thought of men who trusted birds with wars. The letter to Stannis Baratheon was the most dangerous thing Tyrion had held since he was a child in Casterly Rock and realized his own family might kill him by simply refusing to love him. He kept the words sparse. Facts, not accusations. A blade, not a bonfire. "Lord Stannis," he wrote. "Jon Arryn asked questions about the king's children. The lineage book. The phrase. The seed is strong. Grand Maester Pycelle has admitted Lord Arryn spoke with you. Lord Eddard Stark is in King's Landing. The king is unaware or refuses to be aware. If you wish to claim what is owed by law, come prepared to prove it, not merely to demand it." He paused, quill hovering, prepared to prove it, as if proof mattered when men had swords. He sealed the parchment with wax and pressed the lion into it. The irony tasted sharp. A Lannister calling a Baratheon to topple a lioness. Bronn shifted. "You sure you want to send that?" he asked. "Seems like the kind of thing that gets you killed." "It's already the kind of thing that gets me killed," Tyrion said. "At least this way I might die for something useful." Varys's soft voice drifted. "How noble," he murmured. Tyrion did not look up. "How curious," he replied. "Did you come to stop me?" "I came to watch," Varys said pleasantly. "You are a rare sort of creature, my lord. A man with power who seems determined to use it." Tyrion handed the letter to the Raven Keeper with careful instructions, then watched the man tie it to a bird's leg. The raven flapped, impatient. "Do you think Stannis will come?" Tyrion asked, half to himself. Varys smiled. "Stannis Baratheon," he said, "does not come when invited. He comes when duty drags him by the throat." Tyrion snorted. "Then I've thrown a rope around his neck," he said. Varys's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps you've tied it around your own." The raven launched into the air, wings beating hard, and for a moment Tyrion envied it. Could fly away from this city, could carry truth without being asked to die for it. As the bird vanished into the open sky beyond the towers, Tyrion felt the clock tick louder. Cersei would move. She always did when threatened. She would not wait for Stannis. She would not wait for proof. She would strike at the king himself. And Tyrion, holding the hand's chain, would be forced to catch the blow or be crushed beneath it. The hunt was announced like a celebration, which meant it was either a distraction or a trap. In King's Landing, celebrations were rarely harmless. Robert stood in the stableyard laughing at something Renly had said. His cheeks already red, his voice already too loud. Men buckled straps around him as if fastening armor could make him responsible. Nearby, Lancel Lannister hovered with a wineskin, eager as a pup desperate for praise. Cersei stood close, her smile perfect. Too perfect. Tyrion's eyes lingered on her hands. Still, composed. Not the hands of a woman worried for her husband's safety. They were the hands of a woman watching a plan unfold. Barristan Selmy watched too. His disapproval was quiet, but Tyrion saw it in the set of his mouth, the angle of his gaze. Honor recognized danger even when kings did not. Tyrion approached and bowed just enough to satisfy etiquette. "Your Grace," he said. Robert grinned. "Ah, my hand," he bellowed. "Come to join us?" "Gods, imagine you charging a boar. The boar would die laughing." "I came to keep you alive," Tyrion said, pleasant, and Robert laughed again as if that were another joke. Cersei's eyes met Tyrion's, sharp and warning. Tyrion smiled back. He stepped closer to Lancel, sniffed the air slightly. The wine smell was strong, too strong, sweet and harsh. Strong wine. Enough to dull a man's reflexes until a boar's tusk found his belly. Tyrion's voice stayed light. "Cousin," he said to Lancel. "What are you giving the king?" Lancel flinched. "Wine," he said quickly. "His Grace asked." Robert snorted. "Of course I asked. It's a hunt." Tyrion's smile did not change, but his eyes did. "His Grace will drink," he said. "But not that." Cersei's voice sharpened. "Robert," she said. "Don't let him." Robert waved her off. "Oh, leave it," he said. "Let the dwarf fuss. It makes him feel useful." Tyrion gestured, and one of his men, paid from the same chest that had bought the city watch's attention, stepped forward with a different wineskin, smaller, lighter. "Watered," Tyrion said to Robert, as if discussing taste rather than survival. "Enough to keep your throat wet. Not enough to make you forget your spear is meant to go into the boar, not the ground." Robert scowled, but there was a flicker of amusement too. He liked being told no when it sounded like a challenge. He snatched the offered skin and took a long pull. "Tastes like piss," he declared. "Then you're familiar," Tyrion said, and Renly laughed aloud. Cersei's smile froze. For the briefest instant, something ugly flashed in her eyes. A crack of frustration. Barristan stepped closer, voice calm. "Your Grace," he said. "Allow me to ride near you today." Robert frowned. "Why?" he demanded. "Because I would like to ensure you return," Barristan said simply. Robert scoffed. "I'm the king," he said. "Nothing can kill me." Tyrion looked at the boar spears being loaded, at the horses stamping, at the men grinning as if blood were entertainment. "That," he murmured under his breath, "is what dead kings always say." Ned Stark appeared at the edge of the yard then, face tight, eyes scanning. Tyrion caught his gaze and gave a small nod, confirmation that Tyrion was doing what he could. Ned's jaw clenched as if he disliked needing Tyrion to do anything at all. Cersei stepped closer to Robert and touched his arm, a gesture that looked affectionate to anyone not watching her eyes. "Be careful," she said softly. Robert kissed her cheek with drunken ease. "Always," he said, careless. Then he swung up onto his horse with surprising grace for a man his size. Tyrion watched him ride out, surrounded by men who would not stop him from dying if his death served them. Bronn leaned in. "You think she meant to get him killed?" he murmured. Tyrion kept his gaze on Cersei as she watched the hunt depart, her expression unreadable. "I think," Tyrion said softly, "she's tired of waiting." The Kingswood was not kind. It was damp and tangled, a place where trees hid things and men pretended to be masters anyway. The hunt moved through it with horns and hounds and laughter that grew thin as the day wore on. Tyrion had not planned to ride out. He hated horses, and the Kingswood hated men. But he hated the idea of returning to the Red Keep to find Robert's body even more. So he came behind, with Bronn and a handful of riders who answered to coin rather than to blood. He followed the distant sound of horns until he found chaos. The boar exploded from the brush like a nightmare made flesh. Huge, bristled, eyes wild, tusks curved like sickles. Robert shouted in delight, spear lowering, and for a heartbeat Tyrion saw the old Robert, the warrior king, the man who loved to fight because a fight was simpler than a crown. Then the boar struck. Robert's horse reared, screaming. The spear went wide. Mud sucked at hooves. Hounds yelped and scattered. The boar's tusk slashed up, fast, brutal, and Robert's shout turned into a roar of pain. Barristan surged forward, sword flashing, driving at the beast. Renly shouted for men to flank. Huntsmen scrambled, terrified, as if they'd expected the boar to play its part and die politely. Tyrion's riders burst into the clearing. Bronn was off his horse before it fully stopped, moving with predatory speed. Tyrion stayed mounted, gripping the saddle hard, heart hammering. The boar twisted, furious, blood already on its tusks. It went for Robert again. Barristan intercepted, blade biting into thick hide. The boar shrieked, an awful sound, like metal tearing. It smashed into Barristan's shield arm, nearly bowled him over. Barristan held because men like Barristan did not know how to fall. Bronn darted in at the side, sword low, cutting into the boar's leg. The beast stumbled and raged. Robert, on his knees in the mud, grabbed his fallen spear with both hands and drove it forward with a guttural bellow. The spear sank deep. The boar convulsed, shuddering, then collapsed, its breath bubbling. For a moment, only rain and heavy breathing filled the clearing. Robert sat back in the mud, clutching his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, dark against his skin. He looked furious rather than frightened. "Gods," he growled. "That was a proper boar." Barristan knelt beside him, face taut. "Your Grace," he said. "You've been wounded." "No," Robert snapped, as if denial could stop blood. "I've been insulted." Tyrion swung down from his horse with awkward haste and a sharp jolt of pain through his legs. He limped closer, forcing his voice calm. "How deep?" he asked Barristan. Barristan's eyes flicked up. "Deep enough," he said quietly. Renly hovered, pale beneath his charm, trying to look brave. "We should return," he said. "At once." Robert glared. "I'm not dying in the woods," he snarled. "Drag me back to my damned castle." As men rushed to lift him, Tyrion's gaze swept the clearing. Lancel was nowhere in sight. Cersei, of course, was far away, safe and dry, waiting. Tyrion leaned in close to Robert's ear as they hoisted the king onto a litter. "You're alive," Tyrion murmured. "That matters." Robert's eyes found his, sharp even through pain. "Did my wife send a bigger boar this time?" he rasped. Tyrion felt cold settle in his gut. Robert was not stupid. He was simply determined to avoid thinking. "Rest," Tyrion said, careful. Robert's mouth twisted. "Tell me," he demanded, voice low. "Did she try to kill me?" Tyrion did not answer, because any answer here would echo into a war. Robert's eyes blazed. "Don't lie," he snarled. "Not you." Tyrion swallowed. "I stopped what I could," he said finally. "Someone wanted you drunk. Too drunk to fight." Robert's face went hard, as if a hammer had struck steel. "Bring me home," he growled. "Then bring me my wife." The Red Keep's walls held heat like a fever. Robert lay in bed with sweat on his brow and rage in his eyes, the bandages around his side already tinged with blood. The room smelled of herbs and iron and the sour edge of fear men tried to hide beneath loyalty. Tyrion stood at the bedside, cane in hand, the hand's chain cold against his throat. Ned Stark stood back, arms folded, face carved from stone, as if he were witnessing judgment rather than illness. Barristan Selmy waited near the door, a white shadow in armor, ready to act if the room turned into a battlefield. Robert's eyes tracked the door. "Where is she?" he snarled. "Asking permission to enter," Tyrion said softly. Robert barked a laugh that turned into a grimace. "Permission," he spat. "In my own bedchamber." The door opened. Cersei entered with controlled grace, her hair perfect, her face composed. Jaime followed a step behind, golden and silent, his hand resting near his sword out of habit more than threat, though in this room habit could become war. "My king," Cersei said, voice warm with practiced concern. "I heard you were hurt." Robert's eyes narrowed. "You heard," he said, voice rough. "Did you pray?" Cersei's smile did not falter. "Of course," she said. Robert's mouth twisted. "For what?" he demanded. "For my healing? Or my death?" The room went still. Cersei's eyes flicked to Tyrion for a heartbeat, then back to Robert. "You're in pain," she said gently. "You shouldn't speak like this." "I shouldn't have been given strong wine," Robert snapped. "Yet here we are." Cersei's gaze sharpened. "Lancel was only obeying you," she said quickly. "You asked." "I asked for a hunt," Robert growled. "Not a funeral." Tyrion watched her face carefully. Cersei did not panic. She did not plead. She calculated. Even now, even with Robert bleeding, she moved pieces on a board. Ned Stark stepped forward, voice low. "Jon Arryn was murdered," he said, and the words cut through the room like a drawn blade. Cersei turned her head slowly toward him, expression smooth. "Lord Stark," she said. "What an extraordinary thing to say." Robert's eyes flicked between them, suspicion and anger tangling. "Jon," he rasped. "What does Jon have to do with this?" Tyrion felt the moment narrow, a corridor closing. This was where truths either became weapons or became graves. "Everything," Tyrion said quietly. Robert's gaze snapped to him. "What do you know?" he demanded. Tyrion took a breath, tasting candle smoke and inevitability. "Jon Arryn was reading the lineage book," he said, "comparing your bastards to your children." Robert's face went blank for a heartbeat, as if his mind refused to accept the shape of the words. Then anger surged. "My bastards," he snarled. "What?" "The seed is strong," Ned said, voice rough. "Your blood shows itself. Always has." Cersei's smile thinned. "This is madness," she said softly. "Conspiracy whispered by men who envy my children." Robert's gaze swung to her, and Tyrion saw the old love there, thin and cracked, but present, fighting with something darker. "Joffrey," Robert rasped. "Myrcella, Tommen." Cersei's eyes stayed steady. "They are yours," she said. Tyrion watched Robert's face as the truth tried to push through the walls he'd built inside himself. He had wanted a simple life. Drink, hunt, laugh, forget. The crown had never allowed it. Now the bedchamber would not either. Robert's voice dropped, deadly. "If they are mine," he said, "why do they have your father's hair?" Cersei's eyes flashed. "Because children resemble their mothers?" she snapped, the first crack in her composure. Robert's eyes narrowed further. "And my seed," he whispered, "is supposed to be strong." Silence stretched, thick as blood. Jaime shifted slightly behind Cersei, his expression unreadable. Barristan's hand tightened on his sword hilt. Ned Stark looked as if he would rather face an army than this. Cersei took a step closer to the bed. "Robert," she said, voice softer now, dangerous in its intimacy. "You are wounded. You are confused. Let this go and we. Robert snarled, and spit flecked his beard. "There is no we. There has never been a we." Cersei's face hardened. "Careful," she warned, the queen slipping through the wife. Robert's laugh was bitter. "Careful," he echoed. "You've been careful for years." Tyrion felt the room teeter. One wrong word and steel would sing. Robert's gaze locked on Tyrion again. "Proof," he rasped. "You said you don't accuse without proof. Show me." Tyrion's throat tightened. He could not bring the baby from Flea Bottom into this room. He could not drag Gendry here. Not yet. Not with Cersei's eyes on every shadow. But he could do something else. He could give Robert a path forward. One that did not end with him bleeding out in bed while the realm tore itself apart. "I will show you," Tyrion said. "And when you see it, you will need men you can trust. Barristan, Lord Stark, not courtiers, not flatterers." Robert's eyes burned. "And you?" he demanded. "Can I trust you?" Tyrion held his gaze. "You can trust me to do what keeps me alive," he said. "And right now, that means keeping you alive." Robert stared at him, then gave a harsh, pained laugh. "Honest," he rasped. "Gods help me, you're honest." He turned his head slightly, eyes on Barristan. "No one leaves," he ordered. "Not my wife, not my brother, not my council. No one moves without my word." Cersei's face froze. "You can't imprison the queen," she said, voice cold. Robert's eyes flashed. "Watch me," he snarled. Jaime's hand moved fully to his sword. Barristan's stance shifted. "Ready." Ned Stark's hand went to Ice's hilt, slow and deliberate. Tyrion felt the room catch fire without flame. And in that instant, with Robert bleeding and the truth poised like a knife between them, Tyrion understood exactly what Jon Arryn must have felt in his last days, when he realized the realm could be destroyed by something as simple as a child's hair. For a breath, all of them were statues carved from different sins. Rage, loyalty, fear, duty.
Bride.
Tyrion felt the room tighten around them, a noose drawn by invisible hands. Jaime Lannister's fingers whitened around the sword hilt. It was not yet drawn, but in King's Landing a sword could sing even while it slept. Ser Barristan Selmy moved as a tide moves, quiet, inevitable, placing himself between Jaime and the bed with the calm certainty of a man who had stood between kings and death for longer than Jaime had been alive. Eddard Stark's hand did not tremble on ice, but the great sword's presence made the air heavier, as if the room had acquired its own gravity. Cersei Lannister watched the men like a lioness watching hounds circle her den. Her face was composed, but Tyrion saw the strain behind her eyes, the quick calculations shifting like cards in a gambler's hands. Robert Baratheon's glare cut through them all. "Put it away," he rasped, voice rough with pain and fury. He did not specify a sword, because he was a king and expected the world to obey the shape of his will. Jaime's eyes flicked to Robert. For the first time, Tyrion saw something uncertain there. Jaime had killed one king, once, and lived beneath the shadow of that act ever since. Another dead king would not be a clean story, not with half the realm in the room watching. "Your Grace," Jaime began, and even that was a concession. Robert's lip curled. "Don't call me that," he growled. "Not tonight. Tonight you call me what I am." Jaime's jaw flexed. "What are you?" he asked, voice low. "A man who will not be murdered in his bed," Robert snarled. He spat the words like blood. "Not by my wife. Not by my wife's brother. Not by any Lannister who thinks I'm too weak to notice." Cersei's eyes flashed. "Robert!" "Silence!" Robert snapped. The word cracked like a whip, and for an instant the queen looked less like a queen and more like a woman startled by a door slamming. "You will speak when I allow it." Tyrion let Robert's fury hang in the air, because fury was useful. A wounded king who still roared was harder to replace quietly. Barristan's gaze remained on Jaime, unwavering. "Ser Jaime," he said softly, and in that softness was command. "Step back." Jaime's smile appeared, thin and cruel, as if he were amused by the idea of being commanded. But he stepped back anyway, a single pace, then another. His hand remained on the hilt, a promise he refused to unmake. Eddard Stark did not relax. Honor did not trust promises. Tyrion leaned on his cane and spoke into the silence like a knife sliding into cloth. "If steel is drawn," he said, "it will be remembered as treason, not passion, not love. Treason." Cersei's gaze snapped to him. You dare? I dare because I'm already damned, Tyrion replied and kept his voice level. If the king dies tonight, there will be war by morning. If the queen is seen ordering her brother's sword, there will be war by evening. If Lord Stark kills Jaime Lannister in this bedchamber, there will be war before the blood dries. Ned's eyes narrowed. You speak as if war is a coin to be spent, he said. In this city, Tyrion said. It is. Robert's breathing was heavy. Sweat ran down his temple. He looked at Tyrion as if seeing him properly for the first time. What do you want? He demanded. Spit it out. Tyrion did not glance at Cersei. He did not grant her the satisfaction of thinking she was the center of the room. He spoke only to the king. I want the castle sealed, he said. No ravens. No raiders. No whispering servants slipping out with messages in their sleeves. I want your guards doubled. I want your city watch answering to me, not to your wife. I want your children kept safe and close. Cersei's composure cracked into anger. My children are not prisoners, she snapped. Robert's eyes burned. They are mine, he said, and until I decide otherwise, they are safer as prisoners than as corpses. Cersei's face went pale for half a heartbeat. Jaime's gaze snapped to her, protective instinct flaring. Tyrion saw the flicker and understood. Cersei's fear was not for herself. It was for the possibility that the world might take her children from her, not as heirs but as hostages. Robert looked at Baratheon. You, he rasped. White Cloak, you'll guard the children. Baratheon inclined his head. Yes, your grace. Robert looked at Ned. And you, he snarled. You'll stand here with your big bloody sword and make sure my wife doesn't poison my cup while I sleep. Ned's mouth tightened. I will do my duty, he said. Robert's gaze swung back to Tyrion. And you, he said, will prove it. You will prove what you said. If you can't, his teeth bared, then I'll hang you for stirring this rot in my bedchamber. Tyrion bowed slightly. Fair, he said. I'd do the same. Robert's eyes drifted to Cersei again. As for you, he growled, voice dropping into something darker than rage. You will return to your chambers. You will not leave them. You will not send letters. You will not whisper to your cousins and uncles. If you do, I'll tear this crown off your head and feed it to you. Cersei's chin lifted higher. You wouldn't, she said, and Tyrion heard the lie in it. She was reminding herself of what she wanted to believe. Robert's laugh was a harsh wheeze. Try me, he rasped. Jaime stepped forward, a single step, as if he could not help himself. Robert, he said, voice warning. Barristan's hand moved not to draw, but to be ready. Tyrion's cane tapped once on the stone, a small sound that felt louder than steel. Robert's eyes snapped to Jaime. Out, he ordered. You'll stand outside my door with Baratheon. If my wife so much as breathes wrong, I want you to hear it. For a moment, Jaime looked as if he might refuse. Then he saw Barristan's gaze, saw Ned's hand on ice, saw Tyrion's small, stubborn calm, and he did what Jaime did best when faced with a battlefield he could know. Win in a single charge. He smiled. As you command, he said, and it sounded like a promise to disobey later. Cersei turned toward the door, green silk snapping like a banner in her wake. She did not look at Tyrion again, but Tyrion felt her hatred like heat through stone. When she was gone, the room exhaled. The air did not become safer. It became sharper. Tyrion leaned closer to the bed. I'll seal the castle, he said softly, and I'll bring you what you need. Robert's eyes burned fever-bright. Bring me truth, he rasped. And bring me my hammer. I want to smash something that deserves it. Tyrion's smile was thin. In King's Landing, he murmured, everything deserves it. Sealing a castle was not a matter of locks. It was a matter of belief. Men had to believe the doors were closed, that the walls meant something, that the word of the hand carried weight equal to the Queen's whisper. Tyrion moved through the Red Keep's corridors with Bronn at his shoulder and a small escort behind, and every step felt like placing a coin on a table full of knives. The gold cloaks arrived first, faster than Tyrion expected. Janos Slynt had done as he was told, which meant either he feared Tyrion more than Cersei or he had already decided Tyrion's gold was the safer bet. In King's Landing, fear and greed often shared a bed. They came in ranks, boots thudding on stone, helmets tucked under arms. The sight of them sent servants scattering like startled birds. Lannister guards in crimson and gold stepped into the corridor, hands near sword hilts, eyes hard with loyalty purchased by blood and pride. Stark men stood opposite, fewer, but rigid as winter. Bronn grinned as if enjoying a good tavern brawl. "This is lively," he murmured. Tyrion lifted his cane, pointing like a commander who had never held a sword and did not need one. "No one leaves this level," he said. "No one enters without my word. Any raven that flies does so with my seal. Any messenger that runs does so with my coin. Anyone who resists." His gaze slid to Bronn. "We'll learn the cost." Bronn's grin widened. "Happy to teach," he said. A Lannister guard captain, broad, red-faced, stepped forward. "The Queen commands her own household," he said, voice tight. "You cannot bar us from her." Tyrion looked at him as if he were a particularly slow child. "The King commands the Red Keep," he said, "and the King has commanded that the Queen remain in her chambers." "The King is," the guard began. "Alive," Tyrion cut in, "and still king, unless you're declaring otherwise." The guard's mouth snapped shut. Declaring otherwise was treason, and treason was not a word men liked to speak aloud unless they had already won. Behind Tyrion, the gold cloaks shifted, the faint sound of mail and leather. Tyrion heard it and felt his own spine straighten. Not confidence, never that. Only calculation. A servant tried to slip past with a folded cloth pressed to his chest. Bronn stepped sideways, blocking him with lazy ease. "Where you going?" Bronn asked, friendly as a man offering a drink. "To the Queen," the servant stammered. Bronn's hand closed around the cloth and pulled it free. A letter slid out, waxed in green. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "Bring him," he said, and the servant was hauled away, weeping. Men began to understand. The castle was a net, and Tyrion was tightening it. He sent riders to the gates with orders that no one left without his seal. He sent men to the Ravenry with a message. Every bird stayed caged unless Tyrion himself opened the latch. He sent a guard to the nursery to stand with Barristan. Not because Barristan needed help, but because Tyrion wanted eyes there that did not belong to the Queen. Ned Stark followed him through it all without speaking, his silence a judgment Tyrion could feel. When Tyrion issued orders, Ned watched the men obey and looked as if he hated that obedience could be bought. "You're turning the Red Keep into a prison," Ned said at last, voice rough. Tyrion did not look back. "It always was," he said. "It just depended on who held the keys." They reached a stairwell where a pair of Lannister guards stood, uncertain whether to block the hand or obey him. Tyrion stopped before them and let the chain at his throat catch the torchlight. "Open," he said. One guard hesitated. The other moved first, stepping aside. The hesitant one followed, because men rarely liked being the only one to commit treason. Tyrion climbed slowly, cane tapping, and felt the castle's tension rise like heat. The Red Keep had been built to withstand siege. It had not been built to withstand secrets erupting in its own belly. At the landing, Tyrion paused and looked down the corridor where Robert's bedchamber lay. Two white cloaks stood there now, Barristan and Jaime, like opposing statues carved from the same oath. Jaime's gaze met Tyrion's and held, amused and sharp. Tyrion did not blink. Then Tyrion turned away and walked toward Cersei's chambers, because the Queen was the heart of the problem and the heart could not be allowed to beat freely. Cersei's chambers were warmer than the corridors, scented with perfume and anger. Green drapes hung heavy, swallowing light. Mirrors gleamed like still water, reflecting a queen trapped in her own gilded cage. Cersei stood at the window, hands clenched in her sleeves, her posture perfect. She did not turn when Tyrion entered. She did not need to. She knew the sound of his cane the way a wolf knew the sound of a trap. "You've become bold," she said, voice soft as poison. "I've become employed," Tyrion replied. He nodded to Bronn, who closed the door behind them. 2 gold cloaks stood rigid near the entrance, pretending not to stare at the queen. Cersei finally turned, and her eyes were bright with fury. "You're enjoying this," she hissed. Tyrion's gaze slid to the brazier. A letter lay there, half-burned, wax melted into blackened paper. He stepped closer, leaned on his cane, and nudged it with the tip until a line of ink showed through the ash. A name, Tywin. Tyrion's mouth tightened. "You're quick," he said. "I'm not a fool," Cersei snapped. "I won't let a wounded drunk dictate my fate." "A wounded drunk is still king," Tyrion said, voice calm. Cersei's laugh was brittle. "Not for long," she said. "You know that. He's bleeding inside, Tyrion. He'll die. And then, Tyrion interrupted. "The law will demand Stannis Baratheon." Cersei's eyes glittered. "The law?" she echoed. "What does the law matter when I have the city? When I have the gold cloaks? When I have the keys to every gate?" Tyrion watched her, and the old familiar ache rose in him. The ache of remembering that Cersei believed the world bent for her because she willed it so. "You don't have the gold cloaks," he said. "Not anymore." Her nostrils flared. "You bought them," she said, venom thick. "You bought the city like a whore." "It's cheaper than pretending it's loyal," Tyrion replied. Cersei stepped forward, eyes blazing. "You're betraying your house," she hissed. "Your blood, your father." Tyrion's smile was thin. "My father never noticed I had blood," he said. "Only flaws." For a moment, something flickered in her gaze. Recognition, perhaps, or contempt deepening into something almost like pity. It vanished as quickly as it came. Cersei's voice lowered, intimate, dangerous. "He will come," she said. "And when he does, he will ask what you've done. He will ask why you humiliated your sister. He will ask why you placed yourself between our children and their crown." "Our children," Tyrion corrected softly. Cersei's eyes went hard. "Mine," she said. Tyrion leaned closer, letting her see his face clearly. "You think I'm here to steal them," he said. "You think I'm here to take your babies and trade them like coins." Cersei's jaw clenched. She did not deny it. "I'm here," Tyrion continued, "to stop them from being killed." Cersei's eyes flashed. "Killed?" she spat. "By whom?" "By you," Tyrion said. The words hung between them, naked and brutal. Cersei's face went very still. Then she smiled, slow and cold. "Careful," she murmured. "Accuse me again, and I'll scream. I'll call my guards. I'll tell them you tried to force yourself on me. You think men would doubt me?" Tyrion's stomach twisted, not with fear for himself. He was used to contempt, but with a familiar bitterness at how easily lies could be weaponized. "Try," he said softly, "and you'll discover how many guards remain yours." Cersei's smile wavered, the tiniest crack. She glanced past Tyrion toward the door, toward the corridor beyond where she could hear the muffled clink of armor. Jaime's voice rose faintly, controlled fury, then Barristan's calm reply. Jaime was being held back. For the first time, Cersei looked truly caged. Tyrion straightened. "You will remain here," he said, "comfortably, with your servants, with your gowns, with your pride. But you will not leave." Cersei stepped closer, close enough that Tyrion could smell her perfume and the sharp edge of sweat beneath it. "And if I refuse?" she whispered. Tyrion's eyes did not move. "Then I'll do what I've never done before," he said. "I'll choose the realm over House Lannister. Fully." Cersei's gaze searched his face, looking for weakness. She found only exhaustion and resolve. "You always wanted to be one of us," she whispered, cruel. "Father's son, a true Lannister." Tyrion's laugh was quiet, ragged. "No," he said. "I wanted to be allowed to live." Cersei's expression tightened. "You'll die for this," she said, certainty like a prayer. "Probably," Tyrion agreed. He nodded toward the half-burned letter. "And you'll die for that, if I choose to show it." Cersei's eyes widened slightly. "You wouldn't," she said. And again Tyrion heard her trying to believe her own power. Tyrion's voice softened. "I might," he said, "if you force me." He turned toward the door. Bronn opened it. Tyrion glanced back one last time. Cersei stood in green and gold, a queen in a cage she had built for others. Her eyes were bright with hatred, but beneath it Tyrion saw something else now, raw and ugly: fear. Lancel Lannister looked like a boy dressed in a man's armor and terrified someone might notice. His hair was pale, his cheeks drawn, his eyes darting like trapped prey. Tyrion had always thought his cousin's greatest talent was being forgettable. Tonight, forgettable men were dangerous because they slipped through nets. He sat on a bench with his hands clenched together so tightly his knuckles were white. The skin of strong wine lay on the table between him and Tyrion like an accusation. It smelled sweet and harsh, the kind of drink that made men brave enough to die. Tyrion took his seat opposite and set his cane aside. Ned Stark stood behind Tyrion, looming a silent threat. Bronn lounged near the wall, dagger turning lazily in his fingers, as if he were bored by the idea of murder. "Cousin," Tyrion said gently, "how are you enjoying the king's hospitality?" Lancel swallowed. His voice cracked. "I didn't do anything." Bronn chuckled. "That's usually what people say when they did," he murmured. Ned's eyes were hard as winter. "Tell the truth," he said, and the words sounded like a command from a god. Lancel flinched. "I served the king," he whispered. "He asked for wine." Tyrion leaned forward. "And did he ask for that?" He tapped the strong wine skin lightly with one finger. Lancel's gaze flicked to it as if it might bite him. "The queen said..." He began, then stopped, breath-catching, realizing he'd already fallen into the trap. Tyrion's smile was thin. "The queen said..." he echoed softly. "Go on." Lancel's throat bobbed. "She said..." he whispered, "that his grace needed comfort, that he'd be angry without it, that it was my duty to see him pleased." "And you believed her," Tyrion said. Lancel's eyes filled with panic. "She's the queen," he said desperately. "What was I supposed to do?" Ned's voice was like ice. "Not help murder your king," he said. Lancel's face went pale. "Murder," he whispered.
No.
I didn't. Tyrion's voice stayed calm, because calm made men talk. "Did she tell you to keep him drinking on the hunt?" he asked. Lancel's eyes flicked away. His silence was answer enough. Bronn pushed off the wall and strolled closer, dagger still idly turning. "Say it," Bronn said cheerfully. "It'll feel better once it's out." Lancel's hands shook. "She said," he whispered, voice breaking, "to keep you drinking, on the hunt. She said a boar would do the rest. She said the realm would need Joffrey." Tyrion felt Ned tense behind him like a drawn bow. "And what did she promise you?" Tyrion asked softly. Lancel blinked, tears slipping free. "She said," he breathed, "that I'd be rewarded, that I'd be important." Bronn snorted. "Poor idiot," he murmured. "Thought a lioness would make him a lion." Ned's hand clenched on the pommel of his sword. "Where is the queen's reward now?" he demanded. Lancel sobbed once, muffling it like a child. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear, I didn't know it would be like this. I didn't know the boar would." "You knew enough," Tyrion said quietly. He looked down at the strong wine skin, at the sweet smell of it, and felt the cold certainty settle. It had not been chance. It had been design. He leaned back and looked at Lancel with something like pity. "You will tell the king what you told us," he said. Lancel's eyes widened, terror raw. "She'll kill me," he whispered. Tyrion's smile was weary. "If you lie," he said, "the king will kill you. If you tell the truth, the queen might try. So you'd best hope my guards are better than yours." Ned stepped forward, voice low. "If you have any shred of honor," he said, "you will do this. You will not let an innocent child wear a crown built on murder." Lancel sobbed again, nodding frantically. "I will," he whispered. "I will." Bronn leaned in, dagger now still. "Good," he said softly. "Because if you don't, I'll carve the truth out of you for sport." Lancel whimpered. Tyrion did not rebuke Bronn. Fear was ugly, but it worked quickly, and time was running out. Tyrion stood, took up his cane, and nodded to Ned. "We bring him to the king," he said. Ned's eyes were grim. "And then?" he asked. Tyrion's gaze drifted toward the ceiling, toward the room above where Robert lay bleeding and furious. "Then," Tyrion said, "we see whether a king can survive the truth." Varys led Tyrion through the Red Keep's veins as if he had been born inside the stone. The passage was narrow enough that Tyrion's shoulders brushed the walls, damp and cold. The lamp's light trembled, casting shadows that made the corridor seem alive. "You enjoy this," Tyrion muttered. Varys's soft laugh drifted back. "I enjoy many things," he murmured. "Survival among them." Bronn followed close, sword drawn now, his cheer gone, replaced by the alert stillness of a killer in a dark place. "If this is a trap," Bronn said, "I'll gut you first." Varys did not glance back. "If it were a trap," he said, "you would already be dead." They rounded a corner, and Varys lifted a hand. Tyrion froze. Bronn did too, like a dog sensing scent. Ahead, a young messenger stood pressed against the wall, breath quick, eyes wide. He held a letter sealed in green wax, his fingers trembling. He looked as if he had been running, and now the walls themselves had caught him. Tyrion stepped closer. "Where were you going?" he asked softly. The boy swallowed. "To the Ravenry," he whispered. Tyrion's gaze went to the wax. Green. Not the hand seal. Not Robert's. The Queen's. Bronn stepped forward and took the letter from the boy's hand with no gentleness at all. The boy flinched as if struck. Tyrion broke the seal without ceremony. The parchment crackled. He read by the lamp's light, and his stomach tightened with each line. "Father," the letter began, "the king is wounded. The dwarf plays hand and has turned the castle into a cage. Lord Eddard Stark is with him. Bring men. Bring gold. Bring force. If Robert dies, we must hold the city at once. The children must not be taken." Tyrion exhaled slowly. "She's faster than I am," he murmured. Varys's voice was gentle. "She's been practicing longer," he said. Tyrion looked at the messenger. "Who gave you this?" he asked. The boy's lips trembled. "One of the Queen's women," he whispered. She said it was urgent." Tyrion nodded slightly. "It is," he agreed. He looked at Bronn. "Take him," he said, "and put him somewhere safe." Bronn grunted. "Safe for him?" he asked. "Safe for us," Tyrion corrected. "If he disappears, Cersei will know. If he lives, she might believe her message simply vanished in the castle's confusion." Bronn grabbed the boy by the arm and hauled him away down the passage, the boy's soft sobs echoing off stone. Tyrion held the letter in his hand, feeling its weight like a stone. "Tywin will come," he said. Varys inclined his head. "Yes," he murmured, "and he will not come to ask politely." Tyrion's mouth tightened. "How many secrets does this castle have?" he asked, half to himself. "As many as it needs," Varys replied, "and as many as it can swallow." Tyrion folded the letter carefully and tucked it inside his cloak. "We show this to the king," he said. Varys's eyes gleamed. "And if he dies before morning?" he asked softly. Tyrion looked at the lamp flame, at the narrow stone, at the truth pressed into paper like a blade. "Then," he said, "we will need something stronger than truth." He stepped past Varys and pushed forward through the passage, because now he could feel the realm's clock pounding like a drum in his skull. Cersei had called her father, and fathers answered. Robert's bedchamber had become a court without banners. The king lay propped against pillows, face slick with sweat, eyes bright with a fury that seemed to keep him alive by sheer spite. When Tyrion entered with Pycelle and Lancel under guard, Robert's gaze fixed on them like a spear point. "What now?" Robert rasped. More whispers. Tyrion stepped forward and set the folded letter on the bed, careful not to touch the bandages. "Not whispers," he said. "Words." Robert's eyes flicked to the wax. Green. His jaw clenched so hard the muscles jumped. Lancel dropped to his knees beside the bed, trembling. "Your Grace," he choked out. "I." Robert's gaze turned on him. "You," he snarled. "You little pale worm." Lancel sobbed. "I was told," he whispered. "The Queen," she said. Robert's voice rose, rough and broken. "Say it," he demanded. "Say what she said." Lancel's breath hitched. "She said," he forced out, "to keep you drinking, on the hunt. She said a boar would do the rest. She said the realm would need Prince Joffrey." The room went still, as if the words had frozen the air. Robert's face contorted. For a heartbeat, Tyrion thought the king might rip his bandages off and climb out of bed to kill someone with his bare hands. Then pain struck, and Robert's breath came in a harsh wheeze. Cersei's name hung unspoken, but everyone felt it. Robert's eyes slid to Tyrion. "And you have proof," he rasped, not as a question but as a demand. Tyrion lifted the letter and unfolded it. "She wrote to Tywin Lannister," he said, voice steady. "She called you wounded. She called me dwarf. She called this castle her cage. She asked for men, for gold, for force." Robert's eyes burned as he read, lips moving slightly over the lines, each word cutting deeper than the boar's tusk. When he finished, he crushed the parchment in his fist with surprising strength. "My wife," he breathed, and there was something shattered in the words. "My wife calls her father to take my city while I'm still breathing." Ned Stark's face was stone, but Tyrion saw the anger in his eyes. Barristan's posture did not change, yet the room felt suddenly safer with his presence, as if honor itself stood guard. Robert's gaze snapped to Pycelle. "And you," he growled. "Old man, what did you know?" Pycelle's knees seemed to wobble. He tried to bow, chain clinking desperately. "Your Grace," he wheezed. I serve." "You serve?" Robert spat. "Yes, you serve. Tell me what you serve Jon Arryn." Pycelle's eyes flicked toward the door, toward Barristan, toward anywhere but Robert's face. "Lord Arryn asked for books," he whispered. "Lineages." He asked. "Why?" Robert demanded, voice rising. Pycelle's hands shook. "He was concerned," he stammered. "He spoke of the children, of their hair, of the seed is strong," Ned said, voice low. Robert's eyes turned on him with sudden ferocity. "Don't," he rasped, as if the phrase itself were a knife. Tyrion stepped in, voice measured. "Pycelle told Cersei what Jon Arryn was asking," he said. "He admitted it to me." Pycelle made a small, broken sound. I had to," he whispered. "The Queen." Robert's laugh was a harsh bark. "Had to," he echoed. "You had to betray my hand to my wife." Pycelle bowed his head, trembling. "I feared," he whispered. Robert's eyes were wild. "Fear," he spat. "Everyone fears her. No one fears me." Tyrion leaned in slightly. "They will," he said softly. Robert's breathing ragged. He stared at Tyrion for a long moment. Then he looked at Barristan. "Take Pycelle," he rasped. "Put him somewhere he can't poison anyone. Strip him of his chain if he resists." Pycelle whimpered, but guards seized him, and the old man was dragged away, chain clinking like a dying prayer. Robert's gaze returned to Lancel. "And you," he snarled. "You'll live, for now, because I want you to face my wife and repeat every word." Lancel sobbed, nodding frantically. Robert turned his head, eyes burning toward the door as if he could see through stone to Cersei's chambers. "Bring her," he rasped. Tyrion did not move. "Not yet," he said quietly. Robert's eyes snapped to him. "Not yet," he roared, and pain made him cough, blood spotting the bandage. Tyrion held his gaze. "If you bring her here now," he said, "Jaime will draw steel."
Men will die.
Your children will hear it. And Tywin Lannister will arrive to find the Red Keep already soaked in blood." Robert stared, fury battling reason. Finally, his eyes narrowed. "Then what?" he rasped. Tyrion's voice was low, firm. "Then we write," he said. "We make the realm ready for what comes next." The quill felt heavier than any sword Tyrion had ever seen. It was absurd, he thought, that ink could kill more men than steel, but the realm had always been built on absurdities. Robert's breathing was shallow now, each inhale a struggle against pain. Tyrion hated that. He hated seeing the king reduced to a dying man, because dying men made desperate choices, and desperate choices built pyres. Still, Robert's eyes were sharp as Tyrion read the words aloud. "By the grace of the gods and the laws of the realm," Tyrion said, voice steady, "I, Robert of House Baratheon, first of his name, do name my rightful heir according to law, Stannis of House Baratheon, until such time." "Enough," Robert rasped. "He's heir. Write it plain." Tyrion adjusted, quill scratching. He wrote it plain because plain words left less room for liars to wriggle. He continued, "In the event of my death, I name Eddard Stark Lord Protector and Regent until my rightful heir arrives to claim the crown." Ned Stark's jaw tightened, not with ambition but with the weight of duty dropping onto his shoulders like a mountain. "Your Grace," he began. Robert waved weakly. "Shut up," he rasped. "I know what I'm doing." Tyrion paused only long enough to let the words settle. Then read the next line. "I command that the Red Keep and the City Watch obey the hand of the King and the Lord Protector in all matters of security, and that no person, regardless of station, shall remove the royal children from the Red Keep without the King's express leave." Robert's eyes narrowed. "And my wife?" he demanded. Tyrion's quill hovered. The next words were a blade. "The Queen," he said carefully, "is to be confined to her chambers until such time as the King's will is made public and the realm's peace secured." Robert's face twisted. "Write it harsher," he rasped. Tyrion did not. Harsh words made martyrs. Tyrion wanted chains that looked like velvet until they were locked. He held the parchment steady. "Sign," he said. Robert's hand shook as he took the quill. The king's fingers were still thick and strong, but pain had stolen their steadiness. He scratched his name across the page like a wounded beast clawing at the world. Ink blotted. Robert cursed under his breath. Tyrion melted wax and pressed the king's seal into it. The stag stamped itself into red like a promise. Barristan watched it all with a solemn intensity, as if this were the true battlefield. Tyrion suspected it was. When the seal cooled, Barristan nodded slightly, approval quiet. Ned stared at the parchment, as if seeing his own execution written in elegant script. "If I do this," he said, voice low, "it will mean war." Robert's eyes flashed. "War is already here," he rasped. "It's in my bed. It's in my wife's letters. It's in the hair on my children's heads." He coughed again, grimacing. "You'll do it because you're the only man I trust not to lie." Ned's mouth tightened. "Then I will do my duty," he said, and the words sounded like a vow made at a grave. Tyrion folded the parchment carefully and handed it to Barristan. "Keep it close," he said. "If it vanishes, we all die." Barristan's fingers closed around it as if it were a child. "It will not vanish," he promised. Robert's gaze slid to Tyrion, fever brightening it again. "And you," he rasped, "you stay alive long enough to see her punished." Tyrion's smile was thin. "I'll try," he said. Robert's eyes narrowed. "No," he growled. "You will." Tyrion bowed slightly, because sometimes a king's demand was the closest thing to faith a man could borrow. The proof Tyrion brought was not parchment. It was flesh. Getting Gendry into the Red Keep had been like smuggling a spark into a tinderbox. Varys had provided a route that avoided most eyes, because Varys always had a route when it served his purposes. Bronn had provided the intimidation necessary to keep questions unasked. Tyrion had provided the coin. Mhagan came trembling. Baby Bara pressed to her chest as if her arms could be a wall. Gendry came angry, shoulders squared, jaw clenched, looking as if he expected to be mocked or killed. He was not wrong to expect either. The Red Keep offered both in abundance. Robert was propped in a chair, pale beneath the sweat, but his eyes were alive, hungry. When the door opened and Gendry stepped in, Robert's gaze fixed on him with the same predatory focus he'd once used on enemies across a battlefield. Gendry stared back, defiant. "What is this?" he demanded. "Why am I here?" Robert's mouth opened, and for a moment nothing came out. Tyrion watched the king's face, watched memory and denial fight like dogs in his skull. Then Robert laughed. It was a rough, broken sound, but unmistakably Robert. "Gods!" he rasped. "Look at you." Gendry's eyes narrowed. "Look at me?" he snapped. "Who are you?" Robert swallowed, pain flashing. "A man who made you," he said, voice low. Silence fell heavy. "Maegin vimpirid softly, hawking baha." The baby made a small coo and reached a tiny fist toward the air, as if grasping for a world that would soon try to crush her. Gendry stared at Robert, confusion warring with anger. "You're—" he began, then stopped, as if the idea was too large to fit in his mouth. Robert's eyes moved over him. Black hair, thick arms, the shape of his face. He looked at his own hands, scarred and broad, then back at Gendry's. Something in Robert's gaze softened, not with gentleness. Robert had never been gentle, but with a fierce, aching recognition. "I should've," Robert rasped. "I should've." Ned Stark stood back, silent, but Tyrion saw his throat bob as if swallowing emotion. Duty was one thing. Watching a man meet the consequences of his own life was another. Robert's eyes slid to Mhagan and Bara. "And her?" he whispered, seeing the baby's black hair, the way her tiny face crumpled in a yawn. "That's mine too." Mhagan stiffened, fear sharp. "I never asked for anything," she blurted. "I never." "I know," Robert said, voice hoarse. He looked at Tyrion suddenly, as if remembering why this was happening. "You brought them," he rasped. "I did," Tyrion said quietly. Robert's gaze returned to Bara. He reached out a hand, trembling slightly. Mhagan flinched back instinctively, then hesitated when Barristan's calm voice murmured, "He will not harm her." Mhagan swallowed and stepped closer. Robert's big hand hovered over the baby, then settled, awkwardly, gently, on Bara's tiny head. The baby blinked up at him, unafraid, because babies did not know kings from beggars. Robert's eyes glistened. He looked away quickly, as if ashamed of softness. Tyrion felt something twist in his chest. He had never loved Robert. He had merely enjoyed him. But watching a man realize his legacy was built on lies and forgotten children made even Tyrion's cynicism ache. Gendry's voice was raw. "So what now?" he demanded. "You dragged me here to what? To prove something?" Robert's jaw clenched. "To prove the truth," he rasped. "To myself, to the realm." Gendry's eyes flashed. "I don't care about your realm," he spat. "I care about my life." Robert's gaze snapped to him, fierce. "And you'll keep it," he growled. "Because if anyone touches you, I'll—" He broke off with a cough that made his face contort. Barristan stepped closer, concern flickering. Tyrion tensed, fear sharp now. Robert recovered, breath ragged. "You'll keep them safe," he snarled at Tyrion, as if Tyrion were the only wall left between these children and the Queen's knives. "I will," Tyrion said, and surprised himself by meaning it. Robert's eyes burned. "Because now," he whispered, and the words were heavy as stone. "Now I know." The Red Keep did not stay quiet for long. It never did. It was a castle built on conquest, and conquest always left echoes. The corridor outside Cersei's chambers burned with torchlight and tension. Gold cloaks stood in a line, spears leveled, faces tight. Behind them, Tyrion stood with his cane raised like a scepter, his heart pounding hard enough to taste. Across from them, Jaime Lannister advanced with a handful of Lannister guards. Crimson and gold, swords drawn now, eyes set with the fatal certainty of men obeying blood rather than law. Jaime's expression was calm, which terrified Tyrion more than fury would have. Fury could be baited. Calm meant Jaime had already decided what he would do. "Move," Jaime said, voice mild. The gold cloak captain swallowed. "Sir," he began. "The hand." Jaime's gaze slid to Tyrion, amused. "My brother," Jaime said, "is playing at ruling." Tyrion's mouth tightened. "And you," he replied, "are playing at treason." Jaime's smile did not change. "Treason," he echoed, as if savoring the word. "Is it treason to protect my queen?" "It is treason to defy your king," Tyrion said. Jaime's eyes cooled. "My king," he said softly, "is dying." Behind Tyrion, Bronn shifted his stance, sword already wet. Not with Lannister blood, not yet, but Tyrion saw the readiness in him, the eager violence held back only by Tyrion's will. Then Barristan Selmy stepped into the space between the lines, and the corridor seemed to change. The white cloak flowed around him like a banner of old honor. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Sir Jaime," Barristan said, voice quiet, "you will stand down." Jaime's smile sharpened. "Or what?" he asked, almost friendly. "You'll stop me?" Barristan's hand moved to his sword hilt with a slow inevitability. "Yes," he said simply. For a heartbeat, Tyrion thought the corridor would explode. Jaime was the finest swordsman in the realm, and Barristan was old but legendary. Watching them face each other felt like watching two storms about to collide. Jaime's gaze flicked past Barristan to the door of Cersei's chambers. "She's alone," he said, voice tightening for the first time. "You're caging her." "She is confined by the king's command," Barristan replied, "and by the realm's need." Jaime's jaw flexed. "The realm?" he repeated, as if tasting something sour. "Always the realm." A shout rose from down the corridor. Boots, steel, the sound of more men coming. Eddard Stark arrived with Stark guards in gray and mail, ice on Ned's shoulder like winter-made weapon. His face was grim, eyes cutting through the torchlight. "What is this?" Ned demanded, voice hard. Jaime's gaze flicked to him. "The North finally crawls into the fight," he said, mocking. Ned's eyes were ice. "Step aside," he said. Jaime's smile turned cruel. "Or you'll do what?" he asked. "Try to take my head?" Ned did not rise to it. "If you draw steel against the king's command," he said, "you are a traitor. I will treat you as one." Tyrion felt the corridor tighten again, the same noose drawing. He could smell sweat and torch smoke and the faint metallic tang of fear. Jaime looked at Barristan, then at Ned, then at the gold cloaks, then finally at Tyrion. "You're enjoying this," Jaime said softly, and there was no humor now, only accusation. Tyrion's voice was low. "No," he said, "I'm surviving it." Jaime's eyes narrowed. "She's my sister," he said, as if that explained everything. "And Robert was your king," Tyrion replied. Jaime's laugh was short, bitter. "Robert was a drunk on a throne," he snapped, and then the words were out, raw and dangerous. Barristan's eyes flashed. "Enough," he said. Jaime's hand tightened on his sword hilt, and Tyrion saw it. Saw the moment Jaime decided he could cut his way through, that he could reach Cersei before anyone stopped him. Bronn moved, not forward yet, but into a stance that promised death. Tyrion's cane lifted higher. "Jaime," Tyrion said, voice sharp as a whip, "if you do this, you force Father's hand. Tywin will come not to negotiate, but to burn. And when the realm burns, your sister will not be safe. Your children will not be safe." Jaime's eyes flickered at the word children. There was the crack. Barristan saw it too. He stepped closer, voice softer. "You swore vows," Barristan said. "You can break them. Many have. But you cannot unbreak them once the realm remembers." Jaime's jaw worked. For a heartbeat, Tyrion thought Jaime might lunge anyway out of sheer stubborn love. Then Jaime took a slow breath and stepped back. Not surrender, not peace, a delay. He lowered his sword slightly. "This isn't over," he said to Tyrion, voice quiet enough that only Tyrion heard. Tyrion met his gaze. "Nothing ever is," he murmured. Jaime turned on his heel and walked away with his men, crimson and gold melting into torchlit shadow. The corridor exhaled, but the relief tasted like ash, because Tyrion knew what Jaime's retreat meant. Jaime was not defeated. He was preparing. Dawn came thin and pale, as if the sun itself hesitated to rise over King's Landing. The city below yawned awake with smoke from cook fires and distant bells, ignorant of the war coiled inside its castle. Tyrion stood on the battlements with Ned Stark beside him, both of them wrapped in cloaks against the morning chill. The wind tugged at Tyrion's hair and made the hands chain cold against his throat. He welcomed the cold, felt honest. Ned watched the city as if he could see every knife hidden in it. "This place," he said quietly, "is poisoned." Tyrion snorted. "You're learning," he said. Ned's gaze slid to him. "You're enjoying teaching," he said. Accusation and reluctant respect tangled. Tyrion's mouth tightened. "I'm enjoying not being dead," he replied. Below, Blackwater Bay glittered faintly. Ships sat in the harbor like dark needles, waiting to sow blood into the realm's skin. Tyrion imagined sails on the horizon. Dragonstone's fleet, perhaps, or Tywin's banners in the distance on the roads. Either would come soon. A raven landed on the stone near them, wings fluttering. A guard approached quickly, careful, and handed Tyrion the bird's message. Tyrion untied it, fingers stiff with cold, and read. His stomach tightened. "Ned," he said quietly, handing the parchment over. Ned read, his face hardening. "He's coming," Ned said. Tyrion nodded once. "Stannis," he said. "He received the letter. He's sailing." Ned's jaw clenched. "Then we must be ready," he said. "We must be," Tyrion agreed. He looked out over the city again, feeling the weight of everything he had set in motion. Because Stannis will not come gently, and Tywin will not come at all unless he believes he must. Ned's gaze was grim. "Tywin will come," he said, certainty like winter. "For his daughter, for his grandchildren, for his pride." Tyrion's laugh was quiet. "For his name," he corrected. "He loves it more than any of us." Ned's silence held the unspoken question. "Why are you doing this? Then, why stand between your family and the crown they want?" Tyrion did not answer directly. He watched a thin column of smoke rise from Flea Bottom and thought of Baby Barra's black hair, of Gendry's angry eyes, of Robert's trembling hand signing the parchment as if signing his own death warrant. "I'm doing this," Tyrion said softly, "because someone has to stop Cersei from turning the realm into her mirror." Ned's gaze sharpened. "And if the king dies?" he asked. Tyrion felt the question sink into him. If Robert died, the parchment Barristan held would matter only if men chose to respect it. The City Watch would matter only if their pay held. The Kingsguard would matter only if their vows outweighed their loyalties. And Cersei would not wait. Tyrion turned to Ned. "If Robert dies," he said, voice low, "you will be Lord Protector. You will hold this city. You will keep the children alive. And you will do it while lions circle and stags snarl and everyone calls you traitor." Ned's face was stone. "I will do my duty," he said, as if duty were a shield. Tyrion looked back toward the Red Keep's towers, toward the rooms where Robert lay bleeding and Cersei sat caged and Jaime planned in silence. "Duty," Tyrion murmured. "It's a beautiful word. It gets men killed." Ned's eyes did not flinch. "So does cowardice," he said. Tyrion smiled faintly. "True," he admitted. The wind shifted, carrying the city's smells up to them. Smoke, salt, sweat. Tyrion breathed it in and felt, beneath it all, the faint iron tang of coming blood. Stannis sailed. Tywin would ride. Robert Baratheon lay in bed with death pressing close. And Tyrion Lannister stood on a battlement at dawn, knowing the realm's next sunrise might belong to a different king entirely.